Shut up and sit down.
Welcome, everybody, to a Nerds at Large Spoilercast. I am, temporary host, Jacob Hamill.
Yeah, I'm Jeff Mayo.
Darby's not here right now because he didn't play a game that we're going to be talking about, which is Nier Automata.
Yeah, I don't know if he can handle this game.
Not
a Darby game.
Let's get into it, Jeff. What is Nier Automata?
It is, action RPG created by Square Enix and Platinum Games.
Yep, co-developed by them. Written and directed by Yoko Taro.
Yep.
Who is the director of the Drakengard series. He's a very interesting creator. We'll get more into him as we dive into this conversation.
If you're not sure who he is, he's that Japanese developer guy who wears that moon face thing.
Yeah.
Helmet thing.
He's an interesting character. This is an interesting game.
It is.
I'm really glad you played it. This is a very deep and philosophical game.
Yep.
We'll be diving into that. If you didn't know, Nier Automata is the sequel to the 2010 game Nier.
Mm-hmm.
What is Nier? What does that mean? Nier is just the name of the main character in the first game. You don't necessarily need to have played the first game to understand Nier Automata, but things do come up. And this spoiler cast will probably be diving into some of the spoilers from the first Nier, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
So, just a fair warning: if you haven't played Nier, don't listen to this. If you haven't played Nier Automata, definitely don't listen to this. But if you're not interested, if you're not sure if you're interested in Nier, then I would encourage people to probably listen to this, and maybe they will realize that this game is kind of more than just its cover.
More than just that robot girl who's wearing suggestive clothing.
Yeah, it's not too often that I say not to judge a game by its cover, but kind of like with Spec Ops The Line, and I'd say maybe Catherine. Nier is a game where you look on the outside and you see 2B's design in this gothic Lolita outfit. You see that's made by Square and Platinum Games. So you're like, okay, well, it's going to be this over-the-top Japanese action RPG. You can kind of make, I think, a lot of statements about the game just based on those characteristics, but that is not what Nier is at all.
Yeah.
And so I guess I'll just briefly talk about my history with Nier. I did not play Nier until Nier Automata was announced. It was a game that was on my radar for a long time. And then when Nier Automata was announced, I think back in 2015 at E3.
Sounds right.
Yeah, I got the motivation to go back and play the first game, and I loved it a lot. And then I played Nier Automata, and that game it's a game where even after I have completed it, I continue to think about it, and my appreciation for it continues to grow deeper and deeper, and I think it's one of my favorite games ever. Definitely in the top 10. What would be your opinion on it? Like, what are your overall thoughts and feelings on Nier?
Oh, I didn't play the original Nier. Don't know much about it at all, other than Yoko Taro making all that kind of stuff. Nier Automata, liked it a lot. The gameplay is really fun. All the story stuff and the philosophy type stuff was really cool. They had a lot of interesting gameplay and ideas, all that kind of stuff. yeah,
definitely. And again, let's get it out the way. What does automata mean? A lot of people will say automata,
yes, which
is not right. Automata is plural for automaton, which is basically a self-propelled robot. And I think it's interesting. To be fair, like the game would sound really dumb if it was called Nier Robot. But so Automata is kind of like, I think, a clever way to have that idea. But it really is a game about two different groups of robots, the androids and the machines. And I guess we'll just go into it. I think the best way to tackle talking about this game would be just to go through the game kind of chronologically, go through the endings, and then bring up different points when necessary.
Okay.
Because we could be bouncing all over the place, talking about all sorts of things. But I think this will give us a clear way to talk about this game without being too scatterbrained. So I guess we'll start with the opening. So we open up and with a kind of flyover scene. We're in these kind of futuristic flight units, and we're treated to this really interesting monologue by the main character, 2B, who is a android, and she says, "Everything that lives is designed to end. We are perpetually trapped in a never-ending spiral of life and death. Is this a curse or some kind of punishment? I often think about the God who blessed us with this cryptic puzzle and wonder if we'll ever have the chance to kill him. So now that you've played this game, you kind of think about that opening monologue. It raises some questions, I think, and it invites, I think, a deeper conversation. I think Yoko Taro, he's done a lot where he kind of plays, I think, with JRPG tropes, and so already right off the bat, you're kind of talking about killing God, which is a very stereotypical.
I played Tales games.
Yeah, we played Persona, Final Fantasy, Tales games. Like, it all ends with you killing some sort of God. But as you play through the game, you realize that in Nier, that's not exactly what you might think it is. But then we go through the prologue mission. 2B's flight unit is destroyed. They're going to a factory to destroy these giant Goliath class machine forms, so the Yorha, which are the main group of androids, can make contact with the resistance on the Earth. Her squad is destroyed, but she meets up with a character named 9S, who is a scanner unit. He's not quite the same, whereas 2B is meant for battle. I guess that's what the B would stand for. 9S is more of a reconnaissance, hacking type character. Yeah, support character. And so they go through the factory. There's some lines thrown in there, kind of establishing the feeling of the androids and their opinions on the machine life forms, which are the main antagonists. They kind of look like 1950s robots, like wind-up robot toys.
9S is racist.
9S is, how the machines don't have thoughts or feelings. They're just simple robots. And we also treated to the line of, emotions are prohibited. A lot, which is very obviously not true.
Yeah, you kept on hearing that, especially when usually said to 9S, like, man, you keep on saying that, but 9S keeps on going and going. You don't really do much about it.
We'll get into that line. I think it's an interesting insight, I think, into the character of 2B. And then we reach these Goliath class robots, which are giant Transformer-esque industrial oil drilling platforms with giant razor industrial construction equipment saws attached to their arms.
Yeah, like a crane as well, other shoulders or that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and then so they beat the boss, but then there are more Goliath class units, and in order to beat them, because they've been wounded, 9S and 2B, they've been wounded throughout the battle, and so they detonate this thing called the black box. And if you're listening to this and you're kind of confused, so are the players. They throw a lot at you in the beginning. And so they do this thing called a black box detonation, where they touch these two weird black cubes together and they blow up. And you're like, wow. So our two characters have already died.
Yep.
But that's not what happens. What happens, Jeff?
They kind of send their consciousness back up to their base, the bunker, and they get new bodies and stuff. And, yeah. 2B's retains her memories.
Yes.
But 9S does not, because if I remember right, 9S didn't really have time to do it, so he just did 2B's.
Yeah. So it establishes that all these androids, their memories, their data is kind of stored on a cloud type server and is downloaded back into their bodies. So ultimately, we're treated to the idea that their physical bodies are disposable, but their memories are kind of what makes them them. And I think that kind of starts to kind of dive into some of the philosophical questions that this game raises on, what makes you, what's your identity, how can you be the authentic you, and the bunker itself is a really interesting place. Total visual shift. It's kind of like in this monochromatic color system, and it's in kind of this 2D circular kind of design. I think it's really jarring. I think getting thrown out of the visuals of the factory and like the hack and slash look of it back into this very different space. It makes the bunker feel like it should be like this separate, far off entity, because it is this space station floating in space. And then we're treated to a plot dump, so we kind of know what's going on. In the year 5012 AD, aliens invade the Earth with these machine life forms. And so humanity flees to the moon, and then 200 years later, they counter with their own army of androids, and the game takes place in the year like 11,000. So they've been fighting for 6,000 years, an absurd amount of time, in this kind of proxy war of the androids serving the humans who are on the moon, and then the machines who are serving the aliens. And then also interestingly enough, when 2B is kind of rebooting on the bunker, you kind of go through this options menu.
Yeah, figuring out like what you want to do as far as sound levels and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, which will come back in Route B. So let's go ahead and talk about that, about the different routes and the different endings. So, we have Route A, and then you get to the credits, and then people kind of stop playing, which you really shouldn't.
I can get why some people might. I mean, they say at the end of it, like after the credits are done, I think, like, hey, this isn't the true ending of the game. There's still more, blah, blah, blah. But I see why, especially people who got it day one, and, since I just recently played, I obviously knew about all this stuff. Be like, once they sell the credits, like, that probably means there's still not much more or whatever. It's probably whatever,
right? As
far as the extra stuff they're talking about,
right? Yeah,
but no.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like Route A is really just setup, I think, for the rest of the game. So, and this is kind of how our conversation will go. I think we'll kind of talk about like the plot points of Route A, and then when we talk about Route B and C, we can kind of dive into some of the deeper things that are going on. So, anyways, 9S and 2B, they're kind of yes, like you said. 2B remembers what happens at the factory, but 9S doesn't because his data was not uploaded. So even though he remembers 2B, he doesn't remember what happened exactly in the final moments of that mission.
Yeah. He knows the black box exploded, but, not everything necessarily led to that.
Yeah, and it kind of, there's this kind of odd scene very early on where 9S is talking about that, and 2B is visibly annoyed, I'd say. She is kind of like a closing of her fists. She seems a little, perturbed by that. But anyways, so the characters go to the resistance camp, which I think this is something that we should kind of clearly delineate here, is that there are the Yorha units, which is what 2B, 9S, all of our main characters belong to. And then there is the resistance, and those androids are different than the Yorha androids.
Yeah, like the Yorha units get the feeling that, they are androids. You see it, blah, blah, blah. They act like people, but you can tell they're at least more militarized or whatever.
Yeah.
Resistance seem more like, they're people trying to struggle to survive type thing.
Right, yeah. And the big difference is that, like we said before, where the Yorha units, when they die, their data can be re-downloaded. These androids, these resistance androids, are completely on their own. They're not linked to a server or anything like that.
Yeah, and you get some side quests from some of the resistance members that involve some of them dying or something like that. And they're gone for good, and them acting human about it. You can, they want something to remember them by and all that kind of stuff, burials and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And we're also treated to, very early on, a very interesting existentialist question by one of the characters in Resistance Camp, who's asking you to get parts. And when you go get parts for him, 2B and 9S ask him, like, hey, why don't you repair your leg that is very obviously broken? And he says, I can't because I've replaced everything else in my body except for this leg. And then if I replace this leg, then nothing in my body would be original anymore. So it kind of raises the question of, how do we define ourselves? Where does our consciousness reside? And that's kind of an allusion to this famous question called the ship of Theseus, which was proposed by a Greek philosopher. And the idea was that the ship of Theseus, which is in a museum, it's been replaced over, hundreds of years or whatever. Is it still the ship of Theseus if every single part of that ship was replaced?
Yeah, and I don't know all of the stuff about philosophy like you do, but it's still kind of the same thing of, we're talking about humans, when we kind of shed our cells or whatever, they're kind of completely replaced after the 7 years or whatever the hell it is.
Right.
Are we,
Yeah, are we the same person as we were then? Really, I think, interesting questions. And I'm not going to say that Nier Automata is the smartest game ever made or anything like that, but I think it does raise a lot of interesting questions that most games, I think, don't really grapple
I think it's
with.
interesting because it's not like you said, the smartest game ever, but it's a lot more subtle about it in a lot of ways. A lot of the games that raise the philosophy kind of stuff, they're sometimes be more in your face and they can be okay depending on what it is, but there's a lot more subtle about it, where some of it I got to, people mention the philosophy, and that's when I really started thinking about it.
Yeah, and like people were making comparisons to the game Detroit Become Human, which came out about a year after Nier came out.
Yeah, it came out last April. I think, next month.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna really talk about that game, but there was a funny kind of image where it was like David Cage on Detroit Become Human, who's asking the question of, can an android be human? And then you have Yoko Taro with Nier asking, what makes a human human? Which is a deeply more interesting and profound question, I think, in my opinion.
I agree. I don't know much about Detroit, but yeah, from what I heard.
That's what it seemed like, yeah. And so, again, like this game is asking, I think, questions that aren't easy to answer, that are difficult subjects, and weighing different ideas and different meanings of these kind of big questions of, how do we define ourselves, these existentialist questions. But we'll get more to that in, I think, Route B, which kind of really starts to play up some of those ponderings.
This is kind of off top. That's how funny if I was talking about Detroit. It's coming to the Epic Game Stores with PC and stuff.
Right.
People modding in just 2B. It's the real androids. Just throwing Yakutar quotes.
But anyway, shortly after, kind of getting introduced to the Resistance camp, our characters 9S and 2B, they go to the desert to investigate some weird machine going-ons.
Meet Jackass.
Yeah, we meet Jackass, who's a very lovely character.
Yep.
We'll talk about more about her when we talk about the mackerel.
Yeah.
And some of the interesting stuff that comes out of her side quests. But anyways, so the first thing for me as someone who played the original Nier, when going to that desert area, is that those robots are wearing some of the outfits that characters in the original Nier wore, who had a kind of community in a desert. They wore like those kind of cloaks with like the wooden masks. And so I was, for myself, I was like, whoa, like what is going on here? So
you have to fill me in on all the connections. There's one particular character I'm like, okay, I know this is definitely connected to the original Nier, like 100%.
Right.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
And so as we go into the desert, we're kind of following this one robot who keeps running away, and who's very emotive and kind of showing fear.
And the whole time, Nia's like, robots don't know what any of these words mean. They don't know emotions.
Yeah, machines are just, brainless kind of. They only have one purpose, which is to kill androids. Yeah. But clearly not, because we walk into a giant-ass robot orgy. Which is the most, like, what the fuck is going on? So it's all 9S and 2B, they just walk into this giant pit, and there are robots, rocking back like a baby carriage. Some robots are like visibly humping each other. Yeah, and it's like what is happening? And it gets even stranger because the robots stop and they start shouting, "This cannot continue!" And then they form a giant ball, and out from that ball comes a beautiful, beautiful Bishi man.
They finally understood what sex is.
Yes,
at that moment.
Which I love this game because if you're gonna have a character who is, I don't know how to put this. I guess like as obviously sexually attractive as 2B, the game swings both ways because like 3 hours in, you're seeing like a naked ass beautiful man.
Yeah.
Who's called Adam. And so 9S and 2B fight him, and over the course of the battle, he kind of evolves and kind of grows. And then they do manage to kill him, but then the whole thing kind of collapses, and they stab him, and another what the hell moment. They stab him, and out from his chest comes another very beautiful Bishi man.
Yep.
And his name will be Eve, of course. So that happens, and so they go back to the Resistance camp, and then they're instructed to go to this amusement park, 9S and 2B, because they're kind of just doing favors at this point. I think.
Yeah, especially since you're doing all the side quests at that point too. So it's kind of I feel like it. And I'm sure we'll get into this. What I really like about the side quests is you kind of learn about the side quests. You learn about the world going on with the androids and stuff, and it feels more helps it feel more natural when later on it feels like 2B and 9S kind of getting to know the robots and stuff better, and getting to understand like, hey, they're not all bad.
Yeah, and there's a few side quests we'll talk about, I think, in particular, because they kind of hint at
Hopefully
some of the. Well, if not, I can explain. But they hint at some of the. They make allusions to some of.
I did 80% of them, so
you probably saw them.
Yeah.
I think the ones that I talk about aren't going to be too hidden. But anyway, so they go to this amusement park, which is when we see these robots who are not hostile.
You can kill these.
Yeah,
at least a lot of them.
You're right. Yeah, they're dressed up in this clown makeup, and they're kind of pretending to be, I guess, entertainers at an amusement park.
A couple families that are there just trying to have fun.
Yeah, and the reason that they go to this amusement park is because several Yorha androids have disappeared, but they're black boxes, which are still online, and so they go into this amusement park and they find this giant opera singer-esque robot who has been using these androids to decorate herself.
Creepy.
Yeah, very, very bizarre. And of course, these androids that she has, in a way, cannibalized. They're still alive because their boxes are still online. And I love this boss, especially when we come back to kind of talking about some of the deeper things about this boss, because it has a very profound statement on how we identify ourselves through gender. And this boss's name is Simone, which is a reference to the philosopher Simone Beauvoir, which we'll talk about later. And her Simone Beauvoir, the real Simone Beauvoir, she is kind of considered to be the founder of 20th century feminism. She wrote a book called The Second Sex, and pretty much it was talking about how again, gender is a performance, and how women in particular define themselves through their relationship with men. Yeah. But we'll get back to that. So anyways, they beat the boss, and then we meet another very important character in Nier. Our characters follow a peaceful robot back to a village, which is run by none other than Pascal.
Pascal's the homie.
Pascal is a homie. Now, this is interesting. So Pascal is this very, very smart, I'd say very self-aware robot, and his whole village are, up until now, it was said that, the machine life forms they're hardwired into a network. They're all kind of one of a kind. But here we see these very individualistic machines, and in Pascal being the leader of them. And some of them kind of, it's kind of interesting because some of them define themselves through very, they're still the machines that we have been seeing, but like you put a bow on them and all of a sudden, that machine is unique and different.
Yeah, and then there's some that form families. Not really sure how that exactly works in the village, but yeah, there's a mom robot, dad robot sometimes, and they have a little kid robot, even though I think there was sometimes the kids were about the same size, but yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the funny thing, and that's kind of like diving into all these things that we kind of define ourselves with, family, gender, like we construct those things for ourselves, and really, there's not much, they're kind of just superficial.
Yeah, kind of. I guess an example of that might be what they're going for. Pascal, I know they kept on saying he because of that voice. I kept on. Yeah. In my mind, I kept on thinking she.
Yeah, Pascal has a very feminine voice, but the robot itself, defines itself or identifies as a male, or as a man. So it's kind of, there's a lot to unpack, I think, with Pascal's village and these machines. You could talk about, how they identify themselves, but I think that, most importantly is that, these machines are clearly more than what they were made out to be in the prologue. And so we do a few favors for Pascal. We find out that these machines, these peaceful machines in the village, they've been trading with the resistance camp, which kind of like totally flies in the face of like 9S's idea.
And they're like, wait, what? What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. That 9S is like, can't trust these machines. They're up to no good, but clearly not. And then the Goliaths. Then there's another machine attack in the city. They fight more of these giant Goliaths, and that opens up a giant hole, which interestingly enough changes the whole environment.
Something I like about this game as you go through the game and the ending and stuff. You have the environment changes in different ways and what's open to you and what you can do and all that kind of stuff. So it's really cool.
Yeah. So after this battle, after this kind of very cinematic thing, this whole middle part of the city room, which is kind of like the central area in the game, is changed. There's a giant hole in it, and 2B and 9S, of course, go down in there, and they find none other than an alien spaceship.
Yep.
As in the aliens that made the machines. And what do we find? The machines are dead. Or sorry, the aliens are dead. They were killed by the machines a long time ago. And so, yeah, so right away that I guess like the threat that was set up turns out that they're gone.
Yep.
And it's just kind of like just the proxies, I guess you could say, are left behind. And that'll come back later.
Had an Eve show up to drop all this on us.
Yeah. And there's a really awesome, I think, battle where they're kind of 2B and 9S are fighting like one-on-one with Adam and Eve, and you can see the other character in the background fighting.
Yeah, as you go around in a circle or whatever you do.
Yeah.
But it's not a winnable battle. It's just you kind of just go until they're done with their little monologue.
Yeah, it's more like it's like a fight, but like they're more just like it's more like a plot dump, really.
Yeah. Fight is, I guess, survive. Don't get a game over.
Yes. Yeah. And again, I think I should say that like this game's gameplay wise, like it's not that difficult.
No.
Yeah.
Especially going through A and B. Well, especially by the time you get done with Route B, it's really easy. I think maybe the C/D route difficulty went up a little bit in some way.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think the only time I really died was in Route A when I just wasn't know what's going on, and there was suddenly this giant robot.
Yeah.
It's the only. Starting with B, some stuff got more difficult, but I don't think I ever died.
Yeah. And for people out there, if you're playing it, if you find the game too easy, you can definitely kick it up to hard.
Yeah.
But hard is damn hard.
Well, yeah. I guess I don't know if there's maybe hard where you don't use your chips, right? That's the thing. Because I know there's like I guess I played on normal and it's like hard, and there's like very hard where you just die in one hit.
Yeah. That's what that. Yeah, that's what very hard is one hit kill. The only thing that they take away in the hard mode is lock on.
Oh, that's it.
Which is kind of, I think, like a little nod to the original Nier, because that game did not have lock on, but that game was not that hard either. So
yeah, honestly, I mean, part is like I could have done that, but part is like I feel like that just make this potentially just more tedious.
Right.
With that, then it'd make it harder by being a little more tedious.
Yeah, it's a thing that I would say probably like in Route B or C, maybe kick it up if you're feeling it. But if not, that's cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we discover that the aliens who made the machines in the first place, they're dead. And they've been dead for a long time.
Yeah, after 6,000 years.
Yeah, after 6,000 years. And so that's like, whoa. And but there's not really. I think like the Yorha, the commander, kind of like looking into that, but there's not really much they can do about it. And so we kind of go on another, helping out, I think, Pascal, who's interested in this forest kingdom, which is run by these machines that have formed a feudal society.
So definitely more aggressive than
Yeah.
Pascal's group, which,
Yeah. And I love this area, the forest area. It is, I love how the rays of the sunshine just kind of like wash out and pierce through the like the canopy of the forest. Nier is not. I would never consider Nier to be like a graphical powerhouse of a game, not like God of War or Red Dead, but it has an art style.
Visual direction. It's one of those games. The art style helps, and kind of its minimalism in a way, because not much is going on. You definitely look at it a lot of places like this is a game with a budget.
Clearly.
But luckily, since it sold so well, we should get a sequel at a higher budget, I think.
Yeah.
Or maybe not a direct sequel, but Yoko Taro should be getting more, which would be cool.
Definitely. But on our way to this forest kingdom, by the way, I forgot to mention, we meet a character from the original game. We meet Emil.
Yeah, I figured that was the case, especially after you do his kind of side quest line.
Yeah, I'm sure as someone who did not play the original Nier, you're like, who the hell is this?
Yeah, if he just popped out a random robot, it's like, this isn't all robots.
Yeah. So Emil, if people don't know, like I said, he's a character from the original game. He is originally he was this. Originally he was this like I don't know 1,000-year-old like boy. We'll get into that as we kind of talk about it.
Did he look like that in the original game, or
he turns into that?
Okay.
He turns into like a skeleton man.
Yeah.
And by the time we get to him in Nier Automata, he's just a sentient head.
Yep. He has a shop.
Yeah, and later he puts his head in a scooter and drives around.
I don't know how he got it in there, but good on him.
Yeah, Emil's the best, but not really important, I think, for this game. He's more just like a fun nod to the original and establishing, I think, continuity. But anyway, so we go through this forest kingdom, and we discover that the king is in fact a helpless baby robot in a cradle who is then promptly murdered. This game has it all: robot orgies, baby murder.
Yep, everything I love in a game.
So this baby is murdered by the third character on the box, A2, who we have not seen, and we kind of have a battle with her.
We don't see again for a while.
Yeah, A2 is another Yorha unit, but she is deserted Yorha.
Yeah, I don't know why it took me so a while. The ones 2B and 9S, and she's A2. It took me a while to realize, oh wait, the letter number placement are switched.
Yeah.
I don't know why it took me so long. I felt bad with myself.
And here's an interesting thing about Nier. And if you're listening to this spoiler cast and you're like a really big, I guess, Nier head is what we'll call them. Yeah. And so you've probably read all the side stuff. You probably watched the stage plays. We're not going to be talking about that because we only have a certain amount of time. Also, I have not read any of that. But A2, her backstory, you can find, I think it was kind of added into the game, but you can find, I guess, like not audio logs, but like text logs about her kind of backstory. But before the game even came out, there was a stage play about A2's backstory. It's
some Kingdom Hearts shit.
Yeah, it's yeah. You want to talk about like convoluted, how to get your lore in a convoluted way. At least Kingdom Hearts is all in video games, but Nier, you got to read books and watch stage plays and concerts. But yeah, so A2 kills this baby. We kind of fight her briefly, and then she pieces out, never to be seen for like another 10, 15 hours.
Yeah.
But that's okay. So when we get done with that little episode, we go back and Resistance is like, hey, there's an aircraft carrier that we run out in the ship, out in the ocean, and it needs to be protected. So they go to the coast to fight this, protect this aircraft carrier, and then this giant Leviathan-esque machine life form comes up from the ocean.
Let's call it a whale.
Yeah. It kind of looks like a giant like eel, in my opinion. But anyway, so it destroys the aircraft carrier. And then when it is destroyed, it sends out an EMP blast, and 9S and 2B are separated.
Yep.
And so 2B is looking for 9S, and so she goes to the camp, and she meets these two characters named Devila and Popola, who are also from the original Nier.
Okay.
And warning, Nier...
They screamed importance.
Yeah, original Nier spoilers incoming. Devila and Popola are the leaders of the village in the original Nier. They are the ones kind of helping out the main character in that game. At the very end of the game, of the original Nier, it is revealed that they are actually androids. And that they have been tasked with overseeing the main plot to Nier, which we'll talk about a little later. But anyways,
so are these the same Devil and Popola models that were in Nier? Or are these just same models, different?
Same models, different people.
Okay.
Because you kill Devil and Popola in the original game.
Okay, yeah.
Because they try and stop you on your mission.
So, and I know. Sorry, this is kind of bouncing around.
Oh, that's okay.
So the ones in the original Nier, were those the Devil and Popola that they talk about later on that turn rogue, I guess?
Yes.
Okay.
That is what they are alluding to. But anyways, so when I saw them, I of course did not know that I did not think that there were multiple Devila and Popola androids. And so I saw those two and I was like, what is going on? I did not trust them in the slightest. But they give 2B a special device that can help find 9S. And that
I think you could have bought beforehand or something.
Yeah, something like that. But anyways, so she finds that he is actually way down in the ground, and she goes down there, and we are treated to this pristine white place that's called the Copied City, which is really, like, I think personally for me, like, stepping out of that elevator into that city and just being like, whoa, it is surprising, is a stark... I guess, visual change, and then the music kicks in, and I love that area so much. So anyways, she goes to the city, and she finds Adam, who has abducted 9S. And 9S, or sorry, Adam is he's obsessed with humanity, especially violence. And he wants to feel closer to humanity, so he disconnects himself from the machine network, meaning that if he dies, he'll die for real. And so him and 2B fight. 2B, of course, beats him, and he is killed. And he kind of gets to feel, I guess, like the feeling of, mortality and
pain and probably fear and stuff like that.
Yeah, as he dies, he says, so dark, so cold. Anyway, so 2B rescues 9S. 9S is undergoing repairs. And then in the meanwhile, Pascal, her friend from the village, asked 2B to accompany her to make contact with these cultist machines in the factory, in the factory that we went through in the very beginning of the game.
Yeah.
Which also, did you ever find your sword from the beginning?
Wait, I found you mean the body from the beginning?
Yes.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So
I think I did it before that. Maybe.
Right. So, if you're playing through the game and when you die in the prologue, all your large sword, as well as all the plug-in chips, including that really useful auto heal chip, are on your body in the factory. And so the game does a very interesting thing where not only do you realize that your character themselves, like, they're, whenever you die, you're like, it's not reloading your save, you're respawning, and you're going to see the actual body of you that died in that moment. So I think it's a very interesting way to kind of emphasize how that your body is expendable, and that it is it is a finite thing. And like when you're saving your game, you're actually uploading your data to the bunker, which can be re-downloaded into a new body when you die. Yeah,
which is why whenever you save, you got to be at a bunker or around.
Yeah. And so that's the thing that I also love about this game is how I think people get on games a lot for having a disconnect between like what is happening, what is called ludonarrative dissonance. We make jokes about how Nathan Drake would be a psychopath. He guns down 100 guys in the level, and then he acts like a happy-go-lucky dude. In the next scene, but Yoko Taro's games really explore this, and they try as hard as possible to contextualize what is happening gameplay-wise into the story. Yoko Taro's original game, his first game, Dragon Dragoon or Drakengard in the West, that game kind of really focuses on like if you killed as much as you would in most games, that character would be a lunatic.
Nice.
And that is what the original Drakengard is probably the most miserable game in existence, where your main character, Kaim, who we'll talk about later, because we'll talk about the connections between that series and Nier, but he becomes a bloodthirsty, like, sociopath. And the other characters in that original game are also batshit insane. It's a lovely game. It really... I really want to play that game, but I'm also terrified because everyone who's played it is like, yeah, this game is brilliant, but it is torturous to play.
Nice. You don't see that often as far as that. I guess. Yeah. I don't know why. A recent example, I didn't play it. I got it on Game Pass now. It was Vampire, where it's kind of the more blood you suck, the more powerful you are, and the more the townsfolk are suffering because you're killing important people in society.
Right. But anyway, so 2B and Pascal, they go to this machine cult, and when they go in, they realize that the head priest of this cult has died and ascended, and so that caused all the other machines in this cult to
become as gods.
Yeah, become as gods as they shout, and they kind of turn on.
Even in the song.
Yeah, that's another thing is that I love the soundtrack to this game so much.
Oh, the soundtrack's amazing.
You can probably see now why I bought it on like vinyl of all things.
I need to. I can't remember. I need to look back. I can't remember if like Game Awards has soundtracks. Like between that and Persona, I can't remember who won. If either of them did.
It was Nier, and people were really upset because they didn't play a single song from Nier during the Game Awards, even though it won Best Soundtrack.
Man, I didn't even play the game yet, but I heard them say like, "I get it."
Yeah.
Song was my thing going on that didn't play much. Like, as long as one of these two I remember, okay.
Yeah. So anyways, so the machines go crazy, and 2B tries to escape from the factory with Pascal. And then 9S, who is in the bunker getting repairs, he comes in with the assist to help us out. He is kind of hacking into the factory network, taking control of machines, and later helping 2B defeat the final boss in that area to get out of the factory.
Yep.
And so that happens, and then once the characters leave the factory, the machine network goes crazy because even though we killed Adam, Eve is still out there.
Yeah, and I think I remember this where they said like they were pretty much both connected to like half the network or something like that or whatever. Is that right?
Yeah.
I think that's how they said it.
Yeah. So Adam and Eve are machine life forms, but they look like humans or androids. And they are central pillars in the machine network. A lot of, I guess, important. The way it functions is tied to them.
Yeah, because I think I might be getting stuff out of order. I think I remember after you beat Adam, when you go back to the village, talk to Pascal or someone, and she said like half of our people are now disconnected from the network or something.
Yeah, something like that. And Adam, of course, who's the first one, he's more independent, and Eve is very dependent on him.
Yeah,
he kind of,
especially we see later in Route B when you cut to them.
Yeah. Route B, as we'll get into, kind of fleshes out some more of these background
details.
I
like that. Yeah, we'll get to it. Route B fleshed a lot of stuff that I was kind of like about in Route A, but I was like, I know this will probably be covered.
Yeah. And so E, of course, losing the person that he looked to for direction, kind of goes nutso, as do the other machines. And again,
he's android, all that kind of stuff. Kind of makes sense. Hey, Adam's all I have, so kind of just screw everything.
Yeah.
Just let's revenge, nothing else matters.
Yeah, exactly. And so we go to the resistance camp because shit is going down, and holy God, we are treated to the image of these machines with these crazy looking mouths just devouring the androids in the village, in the resistance camp. So anyways, 2B fights them off. 9S comes in to help from the bunker.
Wait, wasn't the devouring thing in... Wasn't that later?
That happens twice.
Okay, yeah.
But anyways, so we'll get to that. Stay tuned. But anyways, so 9S hacks into Eve. They're fighting Eve. He shows up. 9S hacks into him, so 2B can finally kill him to disconnect Eve from the network so they can kill him like they killed Adam before for good. But unfortunately, when 9S does this, he's infected with a virus, which means that his data cannot be uploaded to the bunker and re-downloaded into a new body. And so he asks 2B to kill him, and it's at this point that 2B breaks down sobbing and strangles him. And she says a very peculiar line, it always ends like this.
Yeah.
Which, for the first time you're like, oh, huh? Like what exactly? If you're not caught up in, I think, the emotions of that scene, it kind of raises some eyebrows.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, especially at this point in going through Route B, I was questioning like, okay, I get why 9S likes 2B, but because you're only
2B like 9S.
Yeah, because you get something that is like, how's this building up?
Right.
Like where did this come from?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it didn't feel earned, and then stuff later is like, okay. Like this is a very like the way they did this, and we'll obviously get into it more ago, is very non-safe because stuff like that and the different endings, there are a lot of places where a lot of people who don't know about all the different endings stuff be like, I'm out.
Yeah, and
you couldn't completely blame them.
Yeah. So anyways, so 2B breaks down because she killed 9S. But then it turns out that 9S actually survives by transmitting his data nearby the machines. When he hacked into Eve, or when he was being held by Adam, part of his consciousness data was held in the network, and so he was able to replicate himself or his data without his real body being corrupted. And then we are treated to ending A, and so that's it. That's the game. That was a fun 12 to 15 hour ride. That's it, right? Nope. Nah. And so then we dive into Route B, and it really is unfortunate, I think, that a lot of people stop the game at the ending of A, thinking that was it.
Yeah, I can even imagine some people are like, okay, and then they start being like, you see where you're doing, you're like, nah.
Yeah. So Route B, if you didn't know, you get to play as 9S, and they're like, that's awesome. And then you kind of realize that for like 80% of the game that you've seen so far, 9S and 2B are together and doing the same thing.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was kind of worried about that, but honestly, and it just might have been the way I did the game because I did a lot of the side quests that were available in Route A, and there are different ones that open up because you're 9S and Route B. I think it was bad. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going through it because there were multiple times through it where I'm like, oh yeah, they weren't together. There are definitely some times when they weren't together, or oh, they're together, but 9S did go off and do something different. So
Yeah.
even while you're doing it, you're getting a different side of it or something at the very least.
Yeah, and I'll admit, like the first time I played through this whole game, like Route B was definitely my least favorite part. But I think after playing it again and then preparing for the spoiler cast, I honestly my opinion on Route B has changed a lot. Not that I didn't like it in the first place, but I always thought of it as the low point of the game. But I think it does bring a lot of new things to the table. Not only just playing as 9S.
Strengthen A at the very least.
Yeah, not only playing as 9S, but the extra little cutscenes that we have. We get to see the dynamic between Adam and Eve, and we're treated to these very cryptic
brother scene.
Yeah. So the very beginning of the game, you open up with the standard
robot,
standard
enemy.
Machine life form.
And you've killed hundreds of them already.
Yeah, that you've killed a ton, and he's trying to repair his brother
by pouring like oil on his.
And he moves so slowly, and when you carry... Did you trip over the pole that was on the ground?
I did not, because I figured it happened. I tried... Right after I got it, because I saw I was walking, so like... I know I was probably going to go. I'm going to try it. I tried jumping, figuring how it's going to... Like, oh, okay. I did go around the pole. It's like... I know that's purposely there for you to trip over, so you have to go the long way.
I totally tripped over it, and so when he does that, like the bucket spills everywhere, and you got to get the bucket, and you got to go back and get the oil, and like... I understand people being frustrated with that, but it is so like storytelling through gameplay of just like this is suffering, like this is an awful.
I think it wasn't too long time, but I ended up having to read multiple times at getting a B because I don't know if you remember this part. You can technically get a different ending at the very beginning of Route B. Yeah, because I was completely not sure where to go. I just went, I was like, you go this way. I did. It's like, 9S decided he wanted to learn more robots, so he went away and never seen it again. Blah, blah, blah. Scrolled down. I think it was like ending G. And that's when I was like, I knew there were most other endings. Like, okay, so this is how they're doing all the other endings. And then one of the ones where it's like, those motherfuckers have like endings A through Z, don't they?
Oh, yeah. So A through E, those are all the main story endings. But then if you deviate from the objectives at certain parts, you get these fun little non-canon endings. Yeah, and some of them are really funny, and some of them are really dark.
I'm probably just gonna end up YouTubing
that's the way to do it.
Because like just going to multiple parts and leaving at these certain parts, I'm gonna be looking online, pretty much just reading. It's like that sounds too tedious.
I think my favorite one is at some point playing as 2B, you can like just leave the area that you're not supposed to.
Yeah,
and
I think you do that multiple times.
Yeah, and it's like 2B decided to give up on her quest and just have a life of fishing.
Nice.
I was like, yeah, that's probably the happiest ending. But anyway, so in Route B, you're playing as 9S, and 9S is different from 2B in one major way in that he has a hacking mechanic.
That's the hacking. 2B had two weapons where square was
light
and then triangle was heavy. 9S, you replaced the heavy weapon with the hacking.
Yes. And so what did you think of the hacking mechanic?
I liked it. I liked it more as the game went on. I ended up using it a good bit more once you got to the CD ending, especially since you really only had 9S for a lot of it. Yeah.
I enjoyed the hacking mechanic a lot. A lot of people don't, and I think it's kind of like a love it or hate it sort of thing.
It was fun,
but damn, does it like do some damage? Like.
I mean, and it's a lot fast. I mean, it's a lot faster in a lot of cases, especially with the small robots, especially when you're 9S. You can make, just use on one. It could take no more than 5 to 10 seconds. They blow up and damage pretty heavily any surrounding enemy.
Yeah, and the thing that I like the most about the hacking mechanic and just seeing the whole Route A from 9S's perspective is that it really fleshes out his character. And as for a character who is introduced really as the sidekick to 2B, you really start to realize that you start to realize like how being the sidekick kind of sucks.
Yeah.
and also just how much work that he does. Because
Yeah,
you want
yeah.
to think about like that hacking mechanic being present in Route A of that character doing that hacking.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier when it's like I didn't realize like how much different stuff they were doing, like how much it kind of deviated some. Because I didn't really think about it until Route B. Oh yeah, he went off and did hacking a lot.
Yeah,
like on the side, because normally in a lot of games, especially when you have an NPC partner character or whatever, they're just kind of doing like nothing to it, but while they're just doing this for effects and all that stuff. Like, oh no, there's actually gameplay significance. You just don't realize it until figure it or learn about it until later.
Yeah, and I think they first show off like that hacking mechanic. I think during the Simone boss in the amusement park.
I think that's the main one. Yeah,
and you're just like, what is going on?
Yeah, and you're learning more about her and all that stuff and the significance of why she's dressed that way and the stuff for the androids, other than hey, we just wanted a cool boss design. And
like I said, like the story really, Route B really follows what happens Route A. Going back to that options setup in the very beginning on the bunker, which is I love that part so much.
I know you're going. I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah, do you want to explain it?
Yeah, so what happens when you like we said in Route A when you're 2B, you're setting up your option thing. I don't think we said this part. 9S is kind of leading you through it, and I noticed during the first time, I think there was like a little recording thing at the top, right? Or they said they were recording. I was like
a camera.
Yeah. It's like, that's kind of strange. It kind of stood out to me. Like, and then when you're Route B and you're 9S and you're going through with 2B, they're actually just showing you the clip of when you were, or you're 9S, blah blah, when you were 2B and going through the option thing. So when you were kind of sitting around trying to figure out that you're watching yourself, they're like, oh, come on, man.
Yeah. So you better hope to God you do not get up in the middle of that to go get a snack, because you're going to be sitting there for like 5-10 minutes, however long it took you to complete.
I didn't try. Could you
skip
skip that? Or try to fast forward or something? I feel like that's kind of one of those things Yokotaro would be like, you're sitting through it. This is your fault.
Yeah. So don't go to the bathroom just on Route A. But anyways, story continues like normal, but we're treated to these different scenes. The one that I want to talk about the most would be, I think, the Simone character, the boss that you fight in the amusement park. And so we realized that she was your average machine life form, and she is infatuated with another machine that you've probably already met in the village called Jean-Paul.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I don't know why. I did the whole Jean-Paul thing in Route A, but I guess I didn't make I can't remember if I made that connection about that was Jean-Paul or not.
So she is pining for Jean-Paul's affection, but Jean-Paul is a fucking asshole.
He is an asshole.
And so she goes through these very extreme lengths to modify herself to make herself seem beautiful to him, which again, like I mentioned before, is diving into the real Simone Beauvoir's philosophy. And a fun little fact, Jean-Paul is of course a reference to Jean-Paul Sartre, who is another existentialist philosopher.
I think that's one of the philosophers you sent me, so I saw those names and everything about the Simone being the feminist or whatever.
And the Simone Beauvoir and Jean-Paul Sartre, these real characters, actually had a real world relationship. But it's actually the other way around. Jean-Paul Sartre was actually really envious of Simone Beauvoir. He was he had very poor, I think, self-esteem. He kind of thought of himself as ugly. But anyways, there's a great line when the Simone, the robot, is kind of talking about her modifying herself, which is like, she says, and this is all white background, just text. Which is a thing that I love in Nier, where it's just kind of just using plain backgrounds and text to kind of relay very powerful pieces of information. But she's saying, I look at myself in the mirror, I see my meaningless self, and I scream. Which is, that line just gets me every time, because it really just stabbing at the whole existentialist philosophy, which is concerned about, how do we, what is consciousness, what is authenticity. And just really, I think, thought-provoking. And again, as the real Simone Beauvoir said, women are kind of men adjacent. We don't, we think of man and we think of all these human traits, and then we think of women and we think of them with all these characteristics that are not man.
Yeah, because people who don't know, Simone looks the most quote-unquote human out of all of them. Like, Shot
Yeah.
model himself after a beautiful woman with a dress made of android
yeah.
corpses. But
Yeah, and she's talking about, I think there's parts where she's talking about, and I know that, I think if you played this game, you're like, oh, this is a very minor thing, but I think this one little story really encapsulates some of the deeper themes of this game. And she's talking about, consuming other machines and androids.
yeah, I was remember she did talk about consuming them, right?
Yeah, and feeling like nauseous, which I think kind of ties back to the existentialist term of nausea, and that is realizing that this is a meaningless world, which I guess we should just get into it. The whole idea of the main tenet of existentialism, and you could dive into nihilism, and that's the idea that there is no greater being giving our lives meaning or purpose. There is no God, or God does not give us purpose. There are no intrinsic moral values that are just some that are like math equations in the universe giving us our human nature. None of that exists. It's all our own construction, and ultimately this is a meaningless world, but it is up to us to give ourselves meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And that is called the burden of freedom, that we are cursed in our freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people, when they think of existentialism and nihilism, they think of the very kind of edgy teenager on the internet being like, oh, nothing matters in this world. But actually, a lot of them thought that nihilism, while true, was a problem, and that was something to be overcome.
Mm-hmm.
That wallowing in meaninglessness and having depression over that was something that we needed to work in our lives and find meaning, and not live in what Jean-Paul Sartre said was bad faith, which was the idea of using our freedom to say that we didn't have any freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even the in-game Jean-Paul says a famous quote from him, which is existence precedes essence, which is the idea that we are born and we are created into this world, and then we later retroactively we give ourselves meaning, versus the other way around, which is that he used the example of like a knife. So we make a knife because we need to cut something. So its essence precedes its existence, but humans are humans, and as we learn, androids are not the same. Mm-hmm. Existence precedes essence. So that's a little philosophy 101 for the day. And there's another cutscene where talking about the machines finding treasures, which is a very abstract way of talking about meaning and purpose. So for the machines in Pascal's village, it could be family. It could be
community.
Yeah, brother, sister. For Adam, it would be hatred. Different things like that. I guess for the machines in the amusement park, it could be fun. Mm-hmm. So the machines, that we were first introduced in the very beginning of the game, about how they are just these mindless killing robots. Obviously, by the end of A, we realize that is not the truth, that they are very human. They have emotions and ideas. And then this is kind of diving more into that, about how the machines themselves, I guess since they've killed their alien overlords, they're kind of looking to humans as a god, mm-hmm. and being inspired by what it means to be human, and kind of adopting different, humanistic characteristics, history, philosophy, methods of government. So feudalism, kind of a peaceful communal village or a cult, all different things. And this is what really Route B kind of dives into. Route A is just set up, and Route B is like, okay, let's
fill this stuff in for you.
Let's fill it in. Sorry, I went on that tangent for a long time.
That's all good.
But really, Route B diverges when 9S is abducted by Adam after that battle with the Leviathan.
Mm-hmm. Like how quickly that was in comparison.
Yeah. And so, of course, 9S was abducted by Adam. He's being held in the machine network, and that's where he makes some key discoveries, which I've kind of talked about just a second ago, that machines are deliberately imitating humans. Mm-hmm. Machines are also doomed to repeat mistakes that they never learn.
And definitely comes back later, I believe.
Yeah, and Adam is there in the network, and he starts talking with 9S, kind of hinting at some of 9S's deeper emotions and feelings. And then he drops another very famous line from this game, which is, you're thinking about how much you want to bleep 2B right now, aren't you?
That's Yoko talking to the player.
It could be. And so, obviously, when we read this, the first word that comes to mind is fuck. Because, I mean, yeah. But I think when you continue on in the game and you kind of think about some of the information that is revealed, it could also mean kill. And so that is a little something to chew on about what that. Yeah, I think our gut reaction would be the word would be, haha, 9S wants to fuck 2B, but it's more complicated than that. But anyways, 2B rescues 9S. He's recovering in the bunker, and he's syncing his data with the bunker as he finishes up repairs. Then he discovers something weird going on, and he looks into it. And
something not supposed to.
Yeah, he starts digging into files in the server, in the Yorha server, that he's not supposed to be looking into. And he discovers that humanity has been dead
for a long
time before the aliens even came to the Earth.
Yeah, that's right.
And that Yorha's job is to kind of keep that a secret to perpetuate the myth that humanity is on the moon. And so before that I think can really sink in, we're treated to the final act of Route A. 9S has to go help 2B fight off Eve, he's actually hacking into the factory to help her escape the factory.
Yep, you become a bunch of robots. You get to play around with them.
Yeah, which is a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah.
And we also when you're kind of going to the factory network, you can find these reports called Project Gestalt. Did you find any of those in that part?
Yes, I definitely have. Yeah.
Okay.
I definitely found some. I can't remember if I found all of them though. I can't remember.
Yeah. Did they make any sense to you?
I can't remember what all they said.
Okay. So all right. So brace yourselves. Nier spoilers. Nier original spoilers incoming.
Yeah, I know they talk about this later with the twins.
So the original Nier. I feel okay. If you're listening to this, just hang on for a second. We'll go back to Nier Automata.
Yeah.
But so as I mentioned before, Yoko Taro's first game, Drakengard, has a joke ending. That game also has multiple endings. So his ending E in the original Drakengard, which came out in like 2003, is the main character Kaim and his dragon. They are fighting an evil god, and they are transported to real-world, modern-day Tokyo.
Nice.
And they have a battle over Tokyo where he kills the god, and then he and his dragon are shot down by the Japanese Air Defense Force. Fast forward 7 years later to Nier, and that game is actually following that joke ending from the original Drakengard.
So I'm sure for a lot of people it was like, or it wasn't set up as like a follow-up or anything really, right?
No, yeah.
It was one of those things of, hey, it's another Yoko Taro game, but you play it and you find out, oh, it is connected.
Yeah, exactly.
And then people discover like not only is it connected, it's using what we all thought was the joke ending. That's the canon one.
Yeah. So there is so much like deep lore that you can dive into on this. I'm not going to go into it. Basically what happened is that when the main character from Drakengard 1 and his dragon died in the real world, they brought with them magic. And they also brought with them a kind of plague that plagued humanity. And so that was wiping out civilization. And so humanity was like, we have a problem. And so we're going to use this magic that was also brought over to separate humanity's souls from their human bodies. And so we're going to keep those souls in storage until the plague is gone. And then we're going to put those souls back into artificial bodies called replicants, a lot kind of like the replicants from Blade Runner. Yeah. So, and we're going to build androids to kind of oversee what's going on, to also fight. Diving into there's also like a war going on between extra dimensional forces. It gets nutty, but you don't need to worry about
like an
that.
acid trip.
Yeah, so they're making androids to not oversee this project because humanity is going to be gone, but also to fight the problems that are going on. Anyways, so fast forward a few thousand years to the original Nier, and it turns out that the character that you've been playing as the whole time is actually, again, a replicant, not a real human. And the person that he's been fighting against is called the most video game of video game villain titles. He's the Shadow Lord.
Yes.
But he is actually the kind of a lot like Adam is to the Machine Network. He kind of is that to the human souls. And it actually turns out that the monsters you've been fighting the whole game in the original Nier are the souls of humanity who have gone crazy because as the replicants gain their own personality, their own personal history, their own identity, and it starts to diverge from their original souls, then the souls go crazy, and that also kind of causes the replicants to, quote, relapse, which is kind of like a disease type thing. Anyways, so the main character, in his quest to save his daughter, ends up killing the central person or soul behind all the other souls, and at the end of Nier, you pretty much doom humanity to extinction.
Nice.
All
Happy ending.
all in your selfish quest to save your own daughter. So that's what happens, and so all the replicants die out. All the human souls are doomed to kind of go crazy and then disappear. Not a pleasant ending.
No.
And so that is what the Project Gestalt is hinting at, and that is also why humans are gone and why the androids kind of need to have the myth that humans are still on the moon are out there, because without it, it's kind of like that crippling discovery that, again, talking about the whole existentialist themes, that there is no God, there is no greater purpose. Humans aren't there to give these androids something to fight for, because if they beat the machines, so what? Like, their creators, the things that gave them, that define their existence, no longer is around and has never been so for thousands of years. So that is pretty much the big connection to the first Nier. And then we also start seeing these weird characters kind of appearing as well. We'll get more to that into C. But to quote the commander from the bunker, she kind of approaches 9S because she knows that he found out about humanity not being alive.
Not so slick there, 9S.
Yeah. She's like, you left so much information on the server.
Yeah.
You were not slick at all. She says, no one fights without a reason. We need a god worth fighting for. So, So the ending kind of continues from a lot like Route A. 9S helps 2B fight off the Eve and the machines, and then we go on to Route C.
Yeah.
So, and then I think the smart thing about Route C is that it doesn't pretend to kind of be another. It kind of shows you almost kind of like a trailer, like what is going to happen.
Yeah.
in the third act.
I think what I said to Darby when I finished is kind of not spoiler, because I think I've said this during the regular podcast, because I don't think it's pretty well known at this point that, there are multiple endings in Nier, and the first A and B are similar. So said at the end that, once you get done with B, it's pretty much like it's a trailer for a new game, and it felt like a new game. Like you're starting like a second game or something, or like a trilogy or something when you start C. Yeah.
And so we dive into Route C, which is, again, like a direct follow-up to what happened in Routes B and A. And I'll actually go back for a second to kind of talk about some of the side quests, if you want.
Sure.
You did the mackerel one. Did it involve the arena fighting for Jackass?
I think what happened was you did all those, and then she said, "Hey, come back later. I got something else to show you," or you get an email or something. She gives you the mackerels, like, this could cause weird effects, and then you eat it. It's like, oh, my body's shutting down, but it tastes so good.
Yeah, like mackerels are like hemlock to the androids. But she says a line in that about her kind of discovery of like the combat data of androids, which is very, again, kind of is teasing towards some of the later revelations. And she says that androids, or the Yorha units at least, they find pleasure in combat.
Yeah.
You can make that kind of like almost like sexual pleasure, but anyways, like they find the combat exhilarating. And if you want to get really meta, you could say that that the combat in Nier is so satisfying because it is directly kind of paralleling the feeling that the androids get through combat in the game. it's kind of like the joy that you're feeling playing Nier, which I think it plays very well, very fluid and a lot of fun, is kind of in line with the feeling that the androids are also receiving in the game by fighting the machines. But there's another side quest where you find a android who she lost her memories. Did you do this one in the building? And you go and you find the memories.
Yeah, and then she turns out wait.
She said that she was looking for her friend, a friend of hers.
Yeah, it wasn't the one that her friend died, or there was some memory chips or something. And
Yes.
Yeah, and it turned out she killed her. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
That's one.
Yeah, and she reveals.
You see Jackass again, I think.
She reveals that she is a Type E executioner type. So we realize that Yorha has these group of androids that are there to kind of kill off any other androids that might dig a little deeper. So that'll come back later. I love that detail. And then the last one, did you do the wandering couple? I think they were the two people in the machine village.
I did. I know. Yeah, that one was. I realized because I didn't know when the A was going to end or how all that was exactly going to work at the time. So I ended up doing most of that.
Yeah.
And then I started Route B, and it's like, I got to start all over.
Yeah.
Which it wasn't bad.
Yeah. So at the end of that side quest, the wandering couple, we find that I think the lady of the pair, a man and a woman, that she has been, I think, wiping her partner's memory
multiple times.
Yeah, I forgot why. Was it like she just didn't like him, or like she just wanted to get rid of him?
I can't remember exactly. I don't think it was necessarily like that. I think it was from a caring standpoint, I think.
Right. Well, the big reason, the big thing about that is that no matter how many times she erases her partner's memories, he keeps falling in love with her. He keeps doing the same thing over and over again, which is very similar to what the machines do. And what's interesting also, I'm kind of really hinting
maybe
at,
someone else like we know if I understood things correctly, which we'll get to later.
And you know 2B is a very stoic character. She doesn't say a lot, but she usually offers like a quip or two here and there when you do different side quests. And 9S does a lot of the talking, but in this one, she is dead silent. Yeah. Does not say anything.
Yeah.
So, again, I'm really hinting at it, but I kind of want to save that to the very end.
It's kind of a funny thing. I played, this is like a very off topic, I just thought about it. It's kind of funny. I played Danganronpa VT right before this, and I was like, I reckon, like, I wasn't really thinking about Danganronpa at the time when I started this. Like, I recognize that voice actress for 2B for sure. I looked it up. She played one of the characters from Danganronpa VT. Okay. And I'm just partly showing this because it's funny how similar they actually look. It's like, yep, she has a type.
Also, the character for A2, she voices Makoto from Persona 5.
Wait, who did you say?
A2, the voice actor for her. Okay. Yeah. So I played Nier after I played Persona. That's that's really on the point. Go look at this character.
Yeah, Kurumi Toho from Danganronpa 3, and try your best if you're interested in Danganronpa to not look too far into stuff, because then you'll see spoilers. Right. And Danganronpa's a game you don't want to know anything of going on. Right.
And just to kind of go back to the whole 2V monologue, since we're kind of talking about the philosophy and some of the things, her saying, I wonder about the God who blessed us with this cryptic puzzle. Well, we have the chance to kill him, and the answer is no, because he has been dead. Yeah. Humanity has been dead for a long time. But anyways, so...
Commander's your God now.
Well, as we'll find out in Route C, that will not be around for too long either. So Route C, pretty much because they destroyed Adam and Eve, it's like, okay, well, let's take the offensive now. Let's try and make
the machines. Yeah, aliens are dead. I guess what you would call the two commanding machines are dead. Yeah. As far as they know.
So 9S and 2B are kind of doing different things at this point. 9S has not had a chance to tell 2B that humanity is dead. Yeah. And during the battle, 2B and the other kind of battle Yorha units, they're surrounded by a bunch of machines.
They're teaming up with some of the Yorha things. I'm glad they didn't do their typical video gaming thing of if some or too many of your allies go, you fail. Yeah. But they're just dead.
Yeah. And it feels really bad when they die too.
Yeah. Well, if you feel worse, really soon after that.
Yeah. So anyways, these machines surround 2B and the other Yorha units. They deploy an EMP blast, kind of from earlier during the aircraft mission, and they're knocked out. 9S sees this. He goes in to help, and he has to protect them. And I love this battle so much because they're deploying attacks, the machines that mess with the visuals.
Yeah, up until that point, I was getting recovery items. That's something about where your senses and stuff. Like, what is this referring to?
Yeah.
And I like it. It doesn't take till the beginning after you technically beat the game twice in a way that there's new gameplay and status effects and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Although I don't think it happened that crazy often after this fight.
Yeah, it's very rare, but the blindfolds that these Yorha units are wearing are heads-up displays, and so the things that you are seeing in the game as a player are reflective of that heads-up display. So when the machines are messing with the androids and what they see, it's also distorting color. It's distorting like what you can do. There's a few times where you
can't
take
attack,
away,
whether it's be from your physical weapons or your gun, whatever little turret dude.
Yeah. But anyway, so 9S protects 2B. She gets back up, and it turns out that the other Yorha units have been infected with a virus.
Yeah,
and
so it was 2B, I believe, but 9S kind of hacks that out.
Yeah, he does that. But they're pretty much the battle has turned. Instead of fighting against machines, now 9S and 2B have to fight against their very own Yorha units. And it gets really dire, and so they kind of do a thing that mirrors the very beginning of the game where they touch the black boxes, which is kind of houses all their data.
Yeah.
Kind of powers them.
But they do send the data up before that happens.
Yeah. So they blow themselves up, but they re-download themselves back into new bodies, back on the bunker. They try and tell the commander what happened, and the virus follows.
Why'd you leave?
Yeah.
How we know you're not infected? And then everyone was infected, like, oh, so you're not infected. Cool.
Yeah. But the virus follows them back to the bunker.
Yep.
And shit hits the fan. All these, you end up fighting all the operators in the control room.
Yep. I'm trying to remember their names.
6-0 was definitely in there.
Yeah. So you fight, I forget, 9S's operator.
21-0, yeah. She'll come back later.
Yeah. It's something we didn't mention during Route A and Route B. I kind of like how you learn more about those operators during each one. That also was something that helped make Route A and Route B's different, since you were looking at it from 2B or 9S's thing and you're talking to those operators more. You see how they did and see how they kind of evolved or whatever during their side quest stuff. For example, 21-0.
Yeah, her I
the
think
whole family thing.
Yeah.
Like at that point, she kind of saw 9S like a little brother or child or something.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to that later because that is very important.
Yeah.
But anyways, so the commander is also infected and she has to be left behind, and we're treated to this great credits scene, this like introductory credits scene.
Oh yeah, I was like, we're doing opening credits.
We're doing this again. As the bunker is blowing up, 9S and 2B are crashing back to Earth.
Yep.
Yorha is gone.
There are a couple other than 2B and 9S, of course. There are a couple stragglers you kind of see on there, mostly for side quests.
Yes. But pretty much in what was supposed to be Yorha taking the initiative against the machines has now completely backfired. And now they are doomed. Yeah,
and then it's the whole thing. It kind of ups the stakes in a way. Definitely ups the stakes for 9S and 2B. It's like, there's no reviving. There's no doing any of that stuff. You can't do that whole black box thing and be okay.
Yeah, and like all of a sudden these characters are kind of faced with their own like mortality.
Yeah.
Which I love. But anyways, 2B and 9S are separated, and 2B realizes that she is infected with the virus, and there is no backing up her data. She asks her pod to find a place where she can go pretty much die without infecting other androids. And I love this section so much when because you start off in the flooded city area and you have to go like halfway across the map.
Yeah. Most of it. Yeah.
I love this section because in a way it's awful.
Yeah.
But brilliant.
Yeah, it was very stressful going from there because I ended up falling.
Did you fall in the hole?
Yeah, I fell in the hole. I didn't know if that was intentional
hole.
or what. Yeah, but I ended up going through. I was like, Oh no! So I had to get, especially since for a lot of it, it takes away your ability to really
jump.
run and jump and stuff. So it's like, oh no, am I gonna make it?
Yeah.
I barely made.
Yeah, it's based off of your location.
Yeah.
But I found that hole too. I think that's intentional.
Okay.
Because you're supposed to feel like the suffering and the pain and just how 2B must feel in this moment.
Yeah, you're gonna get a bunch of robots chasing you.
Yeah. So she makes her way to the shopping area where we met Emil for the first time.
Yeah, she's right outside that. Yep.
And she's surrounded by the corrupted Yorha units. But who comes to her rescue?
A2.
A2. And so 2B imparts her memories into her sword, which I'm not exactly sure how that works. I guess just think of it as like a giant USB stick.
Yeah, and does the whole thing with the pod like, yo, A2's the owner now.
Yes, and so she hands over her sword to A2 and asks A2 to kill her mercifully. Yep. Meanwhile, 9S is looking for 2B. He detects her signal. Mm-hmm. He goes to her. He's crossing the bridge. And what does he see? But A2 stabbing 2B right through the chest.
Yep.
And then she turns and looks at him and goes, oh, Nines, which is what he wanted her to call her for the whole time. And I love this section so much because you just, whoever voice acted 9S did such a good job.
Yeah, I ended up looking because I know that voice sounded his voice sounded familiar, but then I looked up like, oh, he really hasn't voiced much. So I don't think he's kind of a newer voice actor.
In that moment, 9S just loses it because, I mean, not only did he find out that humanity, his god more or less, did not exist.
Yeah, and then right afterwards, the whole hey, we're kind of immortal, or at least can come back. Well, that's gone.
Yeah.
And then literally right after that, he sees the person. One of the only people who really care about the person cares about the most get killed.
Yeah.
Like, whoop, she can't come back.
Yeah, the only other remaining thing that really gives his life meaning is now gone. Yeah. And we can see someone just being horribly and violently thrown into existential crisis.
Yeah.
And then from here on out, it's just a slow descent of 9S into like madness.
Yeah. Then right after that, when Knight is going across the bridge towards them, kind of running, screaming, whatever, the bridge collapses.
Yes.
And then I found it funny right after you gain control of A2 again, it's back.
Yeah.
Like, right away.
Well, 2 weeks. No. Never mind. Yeah, that was in that scene. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. That was also when the tower.
Yeah. So also this tower just comes out of the ground.
Out of nowhere.
I assume it's coming from the copied city.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And we're treated to the credits scene again, or like the title splash at like hour 26.
Yeah. Or even a couple hours. It feels like, at least in this route.
Yeah.
And then was it here when it started with the pods, 9S's and I guess A2's now pod communicating back and forth and trying to take data, and this starts. We kind of got hints of it. That's when it really started. Hey, the pods are also gaining emotions.
Yeah. So that happens, I think, all the way back in Route B.
Yeah.
Just the two pods who do all your shooting and pod functions, who are just kind of tools to you. They are also communicating with each other in this like nebulous space, and they're trading data back and forth on what is happening in the game.
Yeah, and at this point, it's, hey, you can control A2 or 9S, and you can choose which one you can do. So, but obviously, it's one of those things I didn't know. I wasn't going to look out of curiosity. I didn't know it was going to be a thing of, hey, if you go too far in one direction, you close off stuff in the other one direction. That's not the case. I didn't know. I just went back and forth, starting with A2 since I haven't played it yet. So let's start with the new person, and just went back and forth from there.
Yeah, and A2 plays a lot like 2B, but there are a few key differences.
She can go berserk.
Yeah. And an interesting thing I like about A2, who has deserted Yorha years ago, I guess we could kind of talk about the backstory of A2. Pretty much she was like one of the early Yorha prototypes.
Yeah.
There was a battle involving her and her squad, which also involved an enemy who was the leader of the resistance camp, and other characters who, and this is also talked about in one of those stage plays. So they go to fight a machine network in like Hawaii. It goes really, really bad, and A2 pretty much discovers she's presumed to be dead, but she discovers that the big revelation that humanity is dead. And so she has been kind of living in this existential crisis, for several years now. Her design is very almost like a wild kind of look to her. Like she's barely wearing any clothes.
Yeah.
And even the little black marks on like her arms and her legs, that's not clothing. That's actually where her artificial skin has rubbed away.
Yeah, I figured that was the case.
Which is such a, I think I love her design a lot in that regards. But so, and she is again kind of going back to the idea of using her freedom to take away her freedom, or to make the excuse, like she's not living authentically. So she realizes that humans don't exist, but she's living in denial of that, and so she is on this like single-minded mission to destroy all machines. Which I guess you could argue that like that's kind of like a very, I guess, flimsy or like one-dimensional motivation, but I think that's the point. That how she is living in denial. You know, she's constructing this very poor kind of reason for living.
I guess this kind of leads to something because during A2's part in Route C, she kind of goes in a way a similar path of 2B and 9S, where she meets Pascal and all that kind of stuff, and she kind of learns that hey, androids aren't necessarily all bad and stuff, but this crosses my mind in both the routes, well, all three the main routes pretty much of. So it seems like they've at least done this stuff for a while. So they've never met machines that were not killers before this point. It just happened to be right now. You know what I'm saying?
Can you explain?
Like with this is more of an A2 thing, but like with 2B and stuff, they're like all machines are bad, and then they suddenly meet kind of Pascal and stuff, and then they suddenly meet a whole bunch of kind of robots and all that kind of stuff, just kind of all at once, just kind of randomly.
Right.
Honestly, I feel that way more of A2 because she's been traveling around herself for a while.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, so she never passed really by Pascal or met.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Here's the thing with
it's a small nitpicky thing, but it just kind of stood out to me.
I know we're kind of really going through this game and going into a lot of the minutia, but really we're just kind of using that to kind of dive into the more interesting parts of the game and some of the deeper themes. But Yoko Taro's talked about this where, you know, he does not consider his stories, like the plot by plot points and the fine details, to really be important. It's more, but he's talked about this in conversations at like GDC and that sort of thing, where he is more interested in communicating with the player and making the player feel emotions. So to answer your question,
I get it.
Yeah,
really
don't think about it.
It just kind of stood out. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, like even like the broader like lore of Nier, it's like there's parts that don't really make a lot of sense, but it's
one of those things.
It's
video games. I mean, there's a lot of context and stuff for a lot of things you do, but then there's the whole thing of hey, no matter which character you're playing, anytime you have the same level and weapons.
Yeah, it's like. That's not the point of the game. Almost like it's not.
So I guess you can argue with the pod chips or whatever. Pods are trading data or whatever. But I guess
But so again, you can play as A2 or 9S. I think we'll just talk about A2's kind of story up until they get to the tower. So A2 meets Pascal because she's kind of just like, I want to fight robots, and also we should mention that 2B's pod is now assigned to A2.
Yeah, and then they have kind of little funny remarks or whatever. It's like, I am programmed to, say this message to you every couple seconds until you comply or whatever.
Yeah,
they're talking about.
The pod calls her stupid at some point.
Yeah, pretty much.
So she's like, I just want to destroy machines, and so they kind of go on that. But she eventually goes back to the resistance camp because she sustained battle during the boss fight against Hegel, who is a philosopher actually. Incoming boss battle with Hegel, which I should mention that a lot of the bosses and a lot of the machine characters, when you have like a data log, and Route B, like their names are this intelligible script, but in Route B they're translated, and so you realize that the leader of the machine cult, his name is Kierkegaard, as in Soren Kierkegaard. The leader of the feudal machines in the forest is Kant, as in Immanuel Kant. All these are big famous philosophers who are tied to existentialism. I think my favorite is the big Goliath machines, or Marx and Engels, as in Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, the authors of the Communist Manifesto. And so they're ironically embodying these industrial machines where the proletariat would labor again for the bourgeois. But I enjoy because it is kind of taking these philosophers and their main philosophical arguments and kind of using them in ironic ways.
Yeah. Because something we didn't, I think it was, this happened in Alpi. Something we didn't mention, go back to the Forest King. We learned why the guy's a baby.
Yeah, so the king died, and they transferred his data into a baby form, assuming that it would grow up into another king, but it's a machine. It's not going to change. It's not going to grow. And so it's been trapped in this baby body, watching its kind of kingdom fall apart for however long.
And you end up, well, actually, I guess that's in this route, so we'll get to that later, yes.
I'm not too familiar with Immanuel Kant's philosophy, but I'm sure it's kind of using that as like a interesting way. Yeah. Soren Kierkegaard was the leader of the machine cult. His idea, he was very against like dogmatic religious institutions. Like he hated the Church of Denmark, and so he argued against kind of blind faith in like the church, or assuming that God gave you meaning. He was a theist, but he was also an existentialist, and so the machine cults would be exactly kind of an example of what he argued against. So it's kind of ironic that the leader is named Kierkegaard. But yeah, A2 meets Pascal, and you kind of do some favors for Pascal.
Well, I think before that, when we meet Pascal was when we go out of the resistance group after you get the part.
Yes.
I think, and or at least hear about the part or something like that. And then she's getting attacked, I think. You take care of that. And then you're the whole thing of you kill androids. I think you get a choice if you want to kill Pascal there.
Yes.
Though, based on what happened later, I imagine it's one of those things, they give you the choice, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's that choice in itself, choosing to kill Pascal leads to one of the like optional endings. Mm-hmm. The right answer is, of course,
okay, that makes sense. No, that one, that makes sense. That'd be one of the endings.
So you end up doing a bunch of favors for Pascal. You build a bridge for the children.
And that's when A2's seeing, oh, hey, not all machines are, vicious killing machines.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. A2 is softening on her opinion of the machines. Mm-hmm. And then
it probably helps the pod. It has data on Pascal. It's like, Pascal is a no threat, blah, blah, blah.
Right. And I think Pascal asks you to go to Anemone, because Anemone has a book that Pascal wants to read. Yes. The book is called Pensée, which is, funny enough, a book written by the real life Blaise Pascal. Pascal being a philosopher. That was the book that the real Pascal died while writing Pensée. Mm. And the Pensée book explores a lot on the nature of humanity, which we'll get to in a second. So you get the book, you're going to go deliver it to Pascal, and what do you know? Another horrific scene.
Yeah, everything going to shit.
Yeah, the machines in the village turn on each other. They are cannibalizing each other.
Yep.
And Pascal is freaking out and asks you to help accompany him to the factory where they've evacuated all the children machines.
Yeah, and take care of the androids here, like help any survivors. One of the things that I found interesting is a kind of feeling of helplessness and sadness added to it is all the machine-like bodies and stuff you see around there are all the robots that you helped on side quests.
Yeah.
The ones that stand out, because I remember when you went down the ladder, there were the two sisters. They were holding each other.
Yes.
The ones with the bows. And then the scientist dude you funded, you see him just lying there dead and just a bunch of stuff like that. And in Route B, there's this child who he's locking himself in there and you got to hack it.
Yeah. And he's still in there, isn't he?
He was still in there. He was the only spot that that showed, hey, he's alive, but it was on fire and everything. But because you're A2, you couldn't hack it.
I'm glad you mentioned that scientist robot for a second, because I kind of want to derail this conversation. We'll get back to it. But shout outs to the channel Super Bunny Hop. I did a lot of kind of reading and looking at different people's interpretations on Nier and its themes. Super Bunny Hop has a great channel. He brought up a point that I haven't seen anywhere else, and how Yoko Taro is Japanese. This is a Japanese game. He talks about the idea of ganbate. Ganbate is a Japanese term roughly meaning good luck, but not in the way that we would say it. It's more of like do your best or give it your all to this purpose. And Yoko Taro, I think, is kind of criticizing that idea of putting all your effort into one task, one defining thing that defines you. I mean, he being a video game developer up until Nier, all of his games have like a 60 or 50 on Metacritic. He would not be what you would consider a success, at his craft. But I think Yoko Taro is kind of criticizing this idea that, don't pigeonhole yourself and pent up your whole identity on one thing. And I think like the robot machine, or the scientist robot in the village, he kind of exemplifies that, because did you complete his quest line?
Yes.
So he's trying to build, I think, like an elevator to the moon.
Yeah.
At the very end, when you fund him enough money, he laments that he failed to do this because he accidentally built an elevator to Mars. And so he kind of, it's like, yeah, you didn't succeed in what you wanted to do, but you did something even better.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good example, I think, of one of those deeper points. But anyways, the machines turn on each other in Pascal's village. They go to the factory, all the children, and you go there with Pascal. They're very scared, the children machines, and it turns out that other hostile machines are kind of coming for them. And Pascal, who's been a ardent pacifist up until this point, realizes that in order to protect what he cares about the most, that he has to give up his pacifism and fight off those the oncoming machines. So you kind of get to take control of a giant Goliath class unit. It's really awesome, but it also I think a simpler game would just be like, you can't always be a pacifist, but when you get done with that, protecting the children, you come back inside and you see, I think, one of the most soul-crushing moments in this game.
All the little kid machines killed themselves.
Yes, because Pascal taught them fear.
Yep.
And he taught them to fear their own death, and so they committed suicide.
Yep. And then you're giving the choice of, well, this lays out 2 choices, but you actually get 3.
You actually get 3. Yeah.
You can either delete Pascal's memories.
Yes.
Or you can kill him. Or you can just walk away.
And none of those answers are the right
good.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. And I did my choice, and then I ended up reading all the other stuff about it after I was done with the game.
Yeah.
And then I heard about the walking away episode. Apparently Pascal screaming, like, what are you doing? Why are you leaving me? And that kind of stuff. And that one sounds soul crushing. I mean, all of them did, but so I went with I killed Pascal.
Okay, I wiped his memories.
This is the way I thought of it, because as we mentioned throughout this whole thing of the whole machine things, they'll always make the same mistakes again. That's been a theme.
Yes.
So it did cross my mind of, if I wipe the memories, this is what would happen. He'll just end up trying to rebuild another village, and this could all just happen again.
Okay, so I want to answer your kind of idea of what happens. So if you wipe his memories, I guess you saw it, so you know.
Yeah, I ended up reading it. Yeah, he just starts a little shop. You sell parts from the machines that killed themselves.
Yeah, he sells the children's cores, which the machine cores are like their soul, basically.
Yeah. Also, if you kill Pascal, you get his core, which is expensive. I did not sell it. I kept it.
That's good. Yeah. I would
like, I can't sell this, man.
But
no, plus it wasn't like I was hurting up money.
Yeah. And you actually meet Pascal as 9S, and 9S is like, "Hi, Pascal, how you doing?" If you wipe his memories, he doesn't remember any of it, and he's like, "Oh, hello. Here are these cores." And 9S is just, at this point, 9S is also very broken, but it's just such a.
It's kind of, yeah, I didn't even think about you meeting them with 9S, because I did not. 9S never met him because I killed Pascal.
Right.
So, but I was always, because we're about to get to 9S's stuff, because his whole thing once he wakes up is to kill all machines.
Yeah.
I was like, oh no, am I gonna end up having to kill Pascal and stuff? It's like, or kill the village out of anger and stuff. At the very least, obviously, I ended up killing Pascal. But yeah.
Yeah. So I do want to mention how the in-game Pascal kind of reflects the real-world Pascal and his philosophy. So Pascal, the real one, he did not have a good view of humanity. He thought that humanity's most defining feature was its wretchedness. But the only good thing about humanity was that we are aware of how wretched we are. And so I think that is what Pascal kind of realizes. He was this very rational thinker, the in-game one, very rational thinker, very hopeful and optimistic, and he kind of realizes just the awfulness of humanity, which is what they are imitating, aspiring to be like. It's kind of, he realizes the duality of man in a way, just kind of like the darkest bottom part of it, fear and despair and fear of death, and it's heavy. But we can move on to 9S now. At this point, after A2 gets done with that, they call attention to what 9S has been doing, and she kind of follows them to the conclusion. But we can jump to 9S now. So he wakes up, and he vows to kill machines in A2 because he is now living in denial as well. And so he goes to the tower, which in a very video game way, the tower is locked, and you need to go through these 3 different areas that have unlocked to unlock the main tower. And so these boxes, which are scattered throughout the world, are called Meat Box, Soul Box, and God Box. So he goes into these, and the thing that I like the most about this is that this is, I think, arguably Nier's most video gamey moment. But the voiceovers in those areas are very, I guess, like they kind of talk down the 9S. They're very hollow. You're getting these rewards. It's like, good job, but it doesn't feel rewarding. And I think that's kind of taking the idea that, like, you have to create your own meaning and your own purpose to find, fulfillment.
Yeah. We go back to video gaming thing. It was also kind of thing of the towers kind of different things. Like, first one, hey, you're just going to fight. Hey, second one, you're just going to be hacking. Yeah.
It does explore, different kind of mechanics of the game.
And there's one thing I think in the last tower, one of the towers was really cool, where there's, I think the next to last floor or something, there are a bunch of treasure chests that obviously spawn, and it depends what you did, and the one you open one, it's like, oh, you killed a lot of androids,
right? Yeah.
or machines.
Yeah. And one of the pieces of information we get from those is that
I felt bad I didn't do them all. I should see what all those were.
Not only is that Yorha, not only are they covering up the idea that humanity is gone, but they are also expendable, and they were expendable from the very get-go. Yeah. Their whole point was to perpetuate that myth and then be wiped clean, to be destroyed, to kind of get rid of any evidence.
Yep. I mean, that makes sense when you have a whole model of Android or whatever that has an E in it for execution.
Yes. And it's revealed that the black box is the thing that powers the Yorha units. What kind of their soul essentially is made from recycled machine cores, because it'd be inhumane to make the standard androids and then wipe them clean and then get rid of them. And I like 9S's reaction to this, in that it's very lackluster. He's so in denial, and if we're gonna go all Friedrich Nietzsche, he's in angst about his whole situation, that it doesn't really faze him. Yeah.
He's like, oh well, not like this can get any worse. Of course, it's the way it is.
Yeah. Yorha was expendable from the very moment. Their whole existence was meant to create a lie and then to be killed off.
Yeah. Kind of going off of that, it's kind of just one of those things. Like, I like how, especially after you get done with the thing about how this kind of plays with your expectation about scouts, because I think you did a really good job when I came and originally talked about it. Yeah. When I made prediction of 9S and 2E, they're just going to end up rebelling against Yorha, and you ended up just kind of you did good to make it sound like because you really see how I saw how that looked like it or whatever, I guess.
Yeah, and there's also tons of moments in these areas that 9S is going through where they're just messing with this poor kid's mind.
Yeah.
There's
Driving him insane.
Yeah, there's a part where he's destroying the cores in these things, and there's a part where it kind of goes back into his memories, and his memories are being deleted by this thing. His memories of 2B, I should add. Yeah. And so he attacks this shadowy figure, and it kind of cuts to that thing is a replica of 2B.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of just stabbing her, and like the blood is kind of splattering everywhere. It's that scene is very, very disturbing. Yeah,
something I kind of like because also playing with reputation because you think this stuff might be like happy ending. It's like, especially when they kill 2, it's like, so TV's gonna have some kind of day of that Mac on that shit and come back, right? Right? No.
I should. Yeah, I was in shock when I think 2B. Yeah. I was like, is she really dead? The character on the box.
Like it's crazy because like for 2B's the main character and she's the Nier Automata representative in Soul Calibur. Like, now you actually end up playing 9S a good bit more.
9S was really the main character in this game. Which I like that a lot. That just kind of subverting expectations. So anyways, I think you can interpret him stabbing that 2B figure, but we'll talk more about the kind of connections between his feelings over 2B and his memories again and again. But there's a very interesting detail in that scene with his memories, in that one of the scenes is of him and 2B touching their black boxes from the very beginning of the prologue. Memories that he should not have.
Oh, yeah. I didn't think about that.
So we'll talk about that some more. And one of the boxes, he fights his operator, 210, who's been corrupted by the logic virus, which, as Jeff was mentioning earlier, that he or she is really kind of discussing her. She came off as really cold to 9S, but really she just wanted to have a family that she really cared for him.
Like, it was kind of weird. It's like a parallel of 2B got the is the stoic character, but the happy-go-lucky operator.
Yeah.
And
9S
this is more happy-go-lucky, but got the stoic operator.
Yes.
And just kind of throughout the whole. But on both sides, well, you see 2B get a little less stoic, and then definitely 210 as you do her little side quest as the story goes on.
Yeah. And so you end up fighting 210, and she's eventually killed by A2, only cementing 9S's anger and desire to kill.
Literally
A2.
killed the 2 people I care about the most.
Yeah, really. But anyways, eventually 9S unlocks all the boxes, and he, which unlocks the main tower. He goes there and he tries to unlock the tower using his hacking mechanic, and it takes a while, and machines start to attack, and you're like, oh god, how am I going to do this? But then Devil and Popola come to your aid, and you're able to hack into the tower. And I think
I was gonna say, I think that's when you get one of those crazy endings or something. You like,
you can let them die.
Yeah, you just keep on fighting. They just die at some point.
Like, but they do die regardless. And I think you're treated to those two Devil and Popola units' own kind of backstory, which I think ultimately, I think kind of, again, they kind of summarize, I think, the ultimate message of Nier, which is, this is a meaningless existence, but it's up to you to find your own meaning, and that's not easy. There's a lot of strife, and for Devil and Popola, like, they are, because of the actions of the two Devil and Popola units from Nier, from the original Nier, they are shunned. They're kind of outcasts in the android society, but they find solace in each other, and I think they find meaning in each other, and they kind of pick themselves up, and that's, I think, tying into a lot of Friedrich Nietzsche's ideas that, like, life is suffering, but that's what makes it important. And living a comfy life is not ideal. And and they are fine. They're accepting their fate, and they're kind of saying yes to life. That's one of his sayings. Yeah. To accept what happens, what has happened. Don't live in denial, but you can push on and find your purpose.
Yeah, I think one of them was kind of hanging out, and at the end, like, I think they may have asked A2, and she kind of like, did we helping in or something like that?
Yeah.
To affect.
Yeah.
I guess before we get on to the tower stuff, which is obviously the last part of the game, I just remember something because, you mentioned go back to Nier. I guess we can talk about Emil's kind of side stuff before we get.
Yeah, we can. So Nier in the original game, when you're actually fighting Devil and Popola in the original one, you kill one of them, I forget, and then the other one comes back and is really enraged because you killed her
So
sister.
like Adam and Eve.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, they really do mirror each other, which we can talk about. We'll talk about Nietzsche's eternal recurrence in a second, but yeah, God, this game. So anyway, I don't think you can't really beat the other one of the pair in the original one, and so Emil kind of sacrifices himself, with accompanied by one of the saddest songs in any soundtrack I've ever heard.
Yeah,
I think it's called Emil's Despair. But anyway, so I assumed that Emil was dead by the end of the original Nier, but turns out that he survives. And he actually
there
defends
are a lot of them.
Yeah, he actually defends Earth when the aliens attack thousands of years later.
Yeah.
And he kind of makes copies of himself to fight off the alien
Yeah,
invasion.
it's one of those kind of small things I can't remember. The Emil made it clear it's like, I don't know if I'm the original or not.
yeah, that's another interesting idea, that the Emil that you know, who is identical to the original Emil, if he is or not, but we don't know.
Yeah.
He could be a copy.
No way to know. Odds are he is not.
Yeah, so, and there's a fun side quest. Did you do the flowers?
Oh yeah,
for
I did
Emil?
all. Yeah, I did all that. I was like, I could tell Emil's related to the original Nier 100%. Of course, I'm going to prioritize this before I move on.
Yeah, and that the area that you go into,
The
and
song that plays at the end of that quest.
yeah, that's from the original Nier.
Yeah, I was like, I sat there like, this is good stuff.
Yeah, and that little shack thing and those flowers, those all relate to a character called Kaine from the original game, who was a friend of Emil. And the beautiful thing about Kaine and Emil, I've kind of spoiled Nier already, so I'm going to go into it. Kaine is the character that is very scantily clad. If you've ever seen images from that game, she looks like she's wearing like a thong and an apron.
Nice.
Well, it's very deliberate, and so Yoko Taro is kind of twisting the whole the sexy lady in your party from a lot of JRPGs. Turns out that one, she's very vulgar and crass and kind of a psychopath.
Nice.
She is also a hermaphrodite. So she is shunned by society because of her genitalia, and that has kind of soured her experience. Emil has he was created to fight off the conflict that was going on way before the games. He was this kid who has like the power to petrify things. So he was outcast and shunned, and he later turns into like the weird freaky skeleton you see. And so from his appearance, and as well as Kaine's attitude and appearance, they're both kind of shunned from society at large, and so they find solace in that. They become really good friends over the course of the original Nier. And so the shack and the flowers, those all relate to Kaine and him kind of remembering her. And you can actually go down there in Route C with 9S.
I did.
You did. Yeah, good. All right.
I can't remember why I did that necessarily. It's like, I feel like I got to go down here, and I did.
Yeah.
And it's like, worth it.
Yeah, so he plants her sword.
Not a sword because
Yeah, not sword. A2 has that.
But it has
a cross. It's a
cross. Cross, and has at least her mask or
yes,
something.
yeah, that is it. So he kind of pays his respects to her.
Then the song plays again. You're like,
Yeah. So, yeah. So I a lot. That's really like I think like the deepest connection I think to the original game. And I think people who are really into the lore of Nier are gonna bring up all sorts of stuff about Kaine and the connections they do and this and that, and it's like I don't know about that, but
obviously I don't know.
you can read in that if you want, but I'm just really concerned with what is in the game.
Who knows? I might try the original Nier. I mean, obviously I heard all this stuff, but it's one thing to hear it and then another thing to experience it yourself.
Yeah, I can lend it to you.
Cool.
Yeah, people will tell you that the gameplay is bad, but it's not bad. It's just okay. But do you want to talk about the tower?
Of course. Let's get into
the finale.
Yeah.
of the game. So 9S goes into the tower where he's fighting some Yorha units, and he is confronted by
a whole bunch of 2Bs.
Whole bunch of 2Bs. Which at this point he takes off his visor, his face mask, and he just
gone insane.
He's kind of gone insane. And you can talk about again, the feelings of violence and sex, which I think is kind of mirrored in the very end of ending A, where 2B kind of straddles him and chokes him out.
Yeah.
That kind of blurring of the line between those two very, human and primal, I think, feelings.
Obviously, there's an audio log that says that's his fetish.
Yeah. But A2 follows, and he kills the 2B models, and then one of them actually explodes.
Yeah.
And he loses his arm.
Then you cut to A2. Yeah, she's like, I think it was right after the whole factory thing with Pascal's where you cut back to her.
Yeah.
And like, hey, I got these readings going on, or the pod did, or if she hears like the intercom or something when 9S was going into the tower.
Yes.
Pod's like, hey, this is where it is, blah, blah, blah. Let's go.
So she follows in after him, and she walks into a library, which is the library from the first Nier. And you can read about, they reference Yona, who's the daughter of the main character in Nier. The whole premise of Nier is that Yona is sick, and he is trying to find a cure for her. So that bit's like a little bit of fan service, obviously, with callbacks, but man, was it effective. You can even go into one of the side rooms, and there's all these trophies of all the bosses that you fought. It's a callback. Yeah, it's a callback to the first one as well. But so she goes into there.
I saw those trophies. Like, are they gonna pull some shit like this is all a game?
No, not quite. I think it's just like a callback to that.
Yeah.
But so 9S is wounded. He puts a 2B arm on him, and this is where he is confronted by what are called the Red Girls, and the Red Girls are pretty much like the overseers, like the admins of the machine network, I guess. And they've been cropping up here and there in more of the routes, but you don't quite know what they are. And here they kind of reveal.
I think the first time that pop up is at the very beginning of, or the end of Route B, right after the whole, whatever, I guess 2B, whatever, killing 9S, and they just appear there, and that was obvious. It was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. So here they appear in full, and they kind of explain what they are to 9S, which is again pretty much explaining what can be derived from the black box file that Yorha was all set up to be destroyed in the end. And 9S kind of starts to lose it even more at this revelation. So anyways, 9S and A2, they are ascending the tower, and I don't think I'm forgetting anything here, but really awesome. It's kind of jumping back and forth between them and A2 and 9S.
Yeah, because 9S is in the flyer thing, because... Sorry, felt a sneeze coming. Yeah, because... Well, right before that, he fights a bunch of Yorha units in the fighter unit things.
Yes.
Then, at the end, he takes one So, yeah, you're fighting two, I guess, twin bosses.
Yeah.
That are pretty much the same, different names, blah, blah, blah. A2's on foot on, like, an elevator thing, fighting things. Yeah. 9S and Sky, you just switch back and forth. I thought that was pretty well done as far as how fluid it could be.
Yeah, it was. I liked it a lot. And just, like, the music is just building and building and building.
Yep. And then at some point, they collide. The two, you get to a point, A2 and 9S get together, and the two bosses kind of combine, and then you fight them together. And even during that fight, you're switching
back and forth. Yeah, really awesome fight. And so you beat that kind of giant machine that you've been fighting going up the tower, and then you're left with a choice.
Yep.
A2 or 9S, because 9S wants to kill A2. That is his goal.
Yep. A2 is like, well, I want to live.
Yeah. And so while they're talking, 9S is completely in denial about what is going on.
He's too far gone. I was kind of like, again, it's one of those things, kind of playing with expectations. I kind of expected coming through this, like, okay, like maybe A2 will explain or something, or at the very least, even if, let's say, 9S killed A2, he'll learn something, maybe feel some guilt or something.
Yes.
Nope. I don't. Nope.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah, he's completely delusional. He's even flashing like those red eyes to indicate that he is he's been infected by a virus, and so and 2B kind of drops the bombshell, or sorry, A2 drops the bombshell that 2B is actually 2E.
Where I was like, That explains so much.
Yes. So she, 2B, was actually an executioner model, and she has killed 9S dozens of times.
Something like she was kind of designated to 9S in particular.
Because the 9S units, because they're hackers, they're very intelligent, and they're going to get into classified data like humanity is dead, and it is up to the executioner models to kill them, to wipe their memories, and re-download their data back into new bodies.
So that's one I was saying. I think so. Did 2B know all this, or just kind of like she followed orders and just got rid of 9S?
Yeah, that's a big question. I think it's kind of up to your own decision.
Which I really liked. Like that explains because one of the like I mentioned earlier in round A and B is like 2B kind of seems like she's kind of warmed up to 9S. Is kind of suddenly doesn't feel completely earned, but you felt it's you felt it's there, and then like you hear that like, oh, that's because she spent so much more time than 9S remembers.
Yeah, that's why she breaks down at the end of ending A and B, and she says it always ends like this. Yeah, because she always ends up killing him, and this is a person, 9S. She's fallen in love with him. She cares for him deeply. She has to keep killing him and experiencing that trauma, and him kind of remembering her. And I like this theory or this idea that this interpretation, I guess is what it is, that when 9S in the very beginning says, oh, my friends call me Nines, but he's a scanner model, so he doesn't really work with a lot of people usually often, is what he says. So you can, in my opinion, I think 2B originally gave him that nickname. And that ties back in with him having that memory when he's going through the boxes of remembering something that he should not remember. So, and this is kind of hinted again at this very final confrontation between 9S and A2, that he knows deep down that 2B kills him repeatedly. And that he knows the truth, but he doesn't want to acknowledge it because his feelings to 2B are a major part of who he is and has given him purpose. Yeah,
and going back to the thing we were talking about with the wandering couple, that kind of thing. Yeah, androids and robots will just repeat their same things no matter what is. Oh, no matter how many times you delete 9S memories, you just put him with 2B and his feelings will
come back. Yeah, and that's why in that side quest at the very end, 2B is dead silent because she is probably being racked with guilt over the fact that she's been killing him repeatedly over the course of before the game even begins. So you're given a choice the fight to choose as A2 or 9S. Who you pick determines which ending you get. Yep. So if you pick A2, you get ending C, which she tries to save 9S by fixing the corrupted data within him, as well as destroying the tower, which is revealed to be a cannon aimed at the moon. Yeah. Kind of like a final solution, I guess, for the machines to kind of destroy humanity and take away the android's sense of purpose. If you play as 9S, then you, A2 gets distracted, and so 9S is able to kill her, like run her through with his sword. And then he also gets stabbed by A2's sword, and was that probably, I think, one of the most uncomfortable moments in the game.
They just both lie there dead. Yeah. And then that's the one where 9S's memories get uploaded to where Adam and Eve's
are, right? So they reveal that the tower is not what originally was a cannon, but is now an arc and is meant to kind of take the data of the machines on like a kind of paradise, if you will, and launch it into space. And so you're given a choice as 9S to join them, and Adam and Eve are there, but they no longer show any hatred towards him. In a way, the arc is kind of like heaven or nirvana, or you can choose to die. So that is ending D.
So I guess we can talk about what choices we picked, even though we both went back and did both. Right. I started with A2.
I did too.
Especially since it's like, 9S, you're too far gone.
Yeah.
And I figured like, I'm going to end up going back, but still. Yeah. And end up working that way. Hey, A2's one is C, so I went in the right order. Yeah. And I did choose for 9S when then I went the whole, just send my memories up, whatever.
Right. And I should mention that A2 also dies in ending C.
So
you can kind of.
In both endings they both die.
Yeah, she makes references to the characters that she lost in the Yorha stage play, that she is dying and going to see them, and her idea of an afterlife. But so that's C and D, and then we get to experience ending E.
Just FYI, I'm running to the gas station for a second.
So we get to ending E, and that is pretty much you can just pick any ending you want again, or the other ending that you did not pick the first time.
Yeah, I guess we can say this because, right after you do, you make your choice and do that ending, you get the whole, after you get through the credits, you get the whole chapter select thing.
Right, yeah,
and
I forgot to mention that.
Like, I was kind of dreading going into it, like, okay, I know I'm going to go back and do this ending right now, but I was curious, like, how it was going to be set up, like, how far back do I have to go? No, that chapter select is in depth.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I love it. You get to choose at pretty much about any point. It tells you who you can choose to play as. Also, how many side quests are available, how many you've done, and which character you have. You have to be to do it. It's like, no, that's really well done, especially with the way this whole game's been set up.
Yeah, it's really great, and like you can jump in wherever you want, and you're probably going to want to finish up any loose ends you have not finished up.
Yeah.
Because when you jump in, you do the other ending that you did not pick the first time, then you're taken immediately to ending E.
Yep.
Where pretty much the pods, in a very self-aware kind of way, they mentioned that now that A2 and 9S's black boxes are offline, that now is the time to finalize the final mission of Project Yorha, and that is to wipe out all the data on Project Yorha. But the pods, their own experiences throughout the game have kind of given them their own identity and consciousness. And so the main pod, 042, which I think is a nod to The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Oh, and I forgot to mention that 2B's name is reference to Hamlet, to be or not to be. So 2B is not actually 2B. But anyways, so you are given
deep.
Yeah. So you are given the choice to stop the data stream or upload. It's been a while since I played this game, so I'm probably blanking on a few details. But you are given the option to rebel against this notion, and you are taken to the credits where, like the hacking minigame you've seen up until now, you have to now fight the credits in a bullet hell-esque sequence.
Yeah, and it starts off pretty like, I got this, then it just gets crazy.
And then Square Enix comes in, which I like to think of this as like Square Enix being the makers of this game in the way they are God, so you do kind of get to kill God.
Yeah.
In a way.
I think with Square Enix, when things got really difficult, maybe.
Yeah.
That's when it got difficult, and I kept on dying at somewhere, and dying to telling him, like, do you want help?
Yes. So the bullet hell sequence is very, very hard. I think it's almost impossible.
I think they did that on purpose. Then it's gonna be that one guy's like, I beat it without help.
Yeah. Well, that guy is probably like a pro at Ikaruga.
Yeah.
But anyways, so you get the message of do you want help? People are offering assistance, and so a swarm of other the kind of like icons that you use to shoot with, other little I guess jets or whatever. They come in to help you.
They shield you.
And if you notice that every time one of those shields gets hit, and they keep coming in, but there's a little message that pops up saying that so-and-so's data was lost.
Yeah.
And so those are real people. Those are real people's data that have beaten the game. And so when you get through the credits, you're treated to the final ending with the help of random people online. You get to the final ending, and a very great line by the pod, who's embarrassed because it originally was supposed to be a suicidal mission, but he actually ends up succeeding. So he says, a future is not given to you. It is something you must take for yourself, which is the ultimate, existentialist Nietzschean idea of to, embrace your freedom, and that make the realization that you are who you are from your own choices in life. There's nothing greater than you making you who you are or guiding you down a path that you can be whatever you want to be. and your future is up to you. And that is, I think, the final kind of message of that, to become, in a way, what Nietzsche kind of was talking about, to become greater than man, to become, to go past our humanity's, I think, desire to abandon our freedom and kind of find, give up on, options in life, and to fully kind of, realize our full potential. And so that was what happens. The pods, because they were exchanging data on what was happening, they were able to salvage 2B and 9S and A2. Yep. And in a way, this through all the awful things that have happened, through all the despair and sadness, we are treated to, I think, the first happy ending in a Yoko Taro game. And, we don't know what A2 or 2B or 9S are going to do. We don't know, like the whole cycle could continue, but they are now free. Yeah. And they are free to make their own future. And that is something that we will not see, because then we are asked a question.
Yep.
Of, the fact that we saw this true ending was because of the kindness of other players of Nier. And it is asking you that to give up your save data so that somebody out there, someone that you will probably never know, someone that you could even hate, might see the true ending, the true uplifting ending to this game. And I deleted my data.
I'm a selfish bastard, and I didn't complete stuff, so I kept my data.
Oh, Jeff. It's okay. You can go back and delete it.
Yeah. I think also, I can't remember before or after. I think after I got done, it mentioned something. Hey, you're done. There's something else unlocked in the world or something. It's not like another set of quests or something. I haven't looked into it, but it made it sound like something like that.
Yeah. Did you get the DLC?
I had not yet.
Okay. I'm not sure what that could be, but yeah, this was also in the original Nier. You're also faced with the choice of giving up your save data, but under different context. And I love the idea of this like option to give up your save data, because I think it is a true like act of kindness. Yeah. And I think very few games kind of embody that, where, in Dragon Quest or a lot of other games, Mass Effect, where you're doing kind of kind things for strangers, it's for your own reward, your own benefit. Yeah. And very few games honestly ask you to give up something important like your save data to help to help another person. And Yoko Taro talked about this, that this ending was kind of inspired by, of all things, a Coca-Cola ad, where Coca-Cola set up these booths on the border between India and Pakistan, two countries that have a very contentious history and that are both nuclear armed countries. But people were allowed from both countries to go up to these booths and interact and write messages for another person in the opposite country. And they were overwhelmingly messages of, good luck and like understanding of the direness of the situation, but ultimately like positive interactions. And I think this game is kind of saying that life can be awful and there can be a lot of dark moments. And I think when you realize that your life is meaningless, that you can fall into this existentialist despair, you can fall into depression, you can go nutso like 9S and live in denial. But when you realize that you're in charge of your future, and you kind of realize that it's the small interactions, like the good parts of humanity, that can give your life meaning. And that's what makes life worth meaningless. In the words of another philosopher who is not mentioned directly in the game, but his philosophy is certainly baked into it, is Albert Camus. He said that your purpose in life is what stops you from committing suicide. So, it's a very dark statement, but I think it shows that, like, he was talking about how the interactions, the beautiful things that he observed in the world is what motivated him to continue and to find his purpose. And I think that's the same. I think that's the ultimate message of Nier Automata. It was a good game.
Yeah. Deep game.
Yeah. Oh man, my voice is tired. But
We still got more to do.
yeah. But I hope anybody listening to this, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I hope if you played Nier and you didn't really kind of grapple with some of these deeper themes, that you maybe can look at the game in a new perspective. I think this game, and like I said, like these are just some of my half-baked ideas. Yeah. There's a lot of readings that you can do into this game, and Yoko Taro wants you to do that. He's been very tight-lipped on what this means. What does ending E mean? He wants you to make your own decision,
and he'll explain all of it in Nier Enigma, out in 2021.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I am very curious to see what a Nier sequel would look like.
And again, as I mentioned earlier, the sales for that game were, it had to be way above expectations.
Yeah.
So I'm expecting Square Enix is just handing Yoko Taro a check, like blank check, like here you go, make us another game.
And I'm excited because he's a creator that obviously is not interested in just making a good story. He's interested in, I think, realizing the full potential of games and their ability to connect with players and to make deep statements that I think could not exist in any other, or messages that could not really be conveyed as well through any other medium. I mean, Nier Automata cannot exist as anything else but a game. And that's why I like it a lot. Yeah.
I feel crazy. We've been talking for about 135 minutes. And we mainly been talking about the story, which is fine. We didn't even talk about all the crazy gameplay stuff I talked about. We're interesting.
Yeah.
Like, I guess one example was during the where I found really cool during the final thing for Route C, when you get to choose between A2 and 9S. The way when you're depending on which one you choose, the style of the fight's completely different. Because when you choose A2, it's all the 3D fighting one like it normally is, and then when you pick 9S, it's a 2D kind of thing, which happens a good bit during Nier. You get to that perspective, and it changes perspective a lot from the kind of 2D kind of brawler thing, side-scrolling brawler, to the regular 3D thing, to what, I'm forgetting the right word.
The like the hack and slash kind of, or the hacking stuff.
Yeah, the up-down stuff or whatever.
Right.
Top-down.
The 2D.
Style.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This game goes all over the place in gameplay, and again, it's not concerned with being like the most perfect game or to tell this like really conventionally compelling story. As much as I know, God of War is a great game. Red Dead Redemption, the Naughty Dog games, like those are all great stories, but they could be movies, and you wouldn't really be missing out on a lot from those stories.
You couldn't make a movie out of Nier.
You could not, and I think that's
unless you make 5 movies.
Yeah, I mean, even in at what point would it like just shatter the fourth wall at the end of, and you have that kind of interaction where you're realizing the full empathy, I think, of your actions at ending E. This game is something, and I like it a lot. And the more I think about it, the more my appreciation for it grows. It's again one of my favorite games ever, and I'm excited for Yoko Taro's work. If you want to read more, I think, eloquent points on Nier, there's tons of video essays and articles. But again, like this game it's up to your own, I think, reading into it to find the meaning of it. I think the deepest meaning.
Off-topic question: is that referencing that anime on Netflix?
I don't know. This was a link on the. He's pointing to like one of the articles.
I might be remember the name. I feel like it's an anime on Netflix.
Maybe, I don't know. He's pointing to one of the articles that I put on my my little doc. But there's a lot of great articles out there that really dive into the philosophy of these games. So I
didn't realize until just looking at the picture. It has Nier's cover. 2B's holding looks like a dead 9S, but you think it'd be kind of the other way around based on this game.
Yeah. Oh man, like watching. I mean, just real quick, like watching the trailers and stuff for Nier, like in the lead up to release, you have no idea what this game was about.
Yeah, I didn't really follow it leading up to it and all that stuff. I can't even remember the trailers. I'll look back on this. I imagine it's one of those things where the bulk of the trailers is stuff from the A route, maybe if a little of B or something. Then maybe just like showing the Yorha soldiers dressed up in the battle gear and C at most.
Yeah. And I don't know if you read that final data file from Jackass, who kind of sums up the game, like what was going on.
I don't think I did, unfortunately.
I'll read it out. She writes, so then, to sum it up, for hundreds of years, we've been fighting a network of machines with the ghost of humanity at its core. We've been living in a stupid fucking world where we fight an endless war that we couldn't possibly lose, all for the sake of some council of humanity on the moon that doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess we kind of like glossed over it, but yeah, again, the machines themselves, their single purpose was to defeat the androids, but that's a contradictory statement because if they end up winning, then they have no more purpose in life. So they made faults in their own data systems, which is why they started adopting different forms of different ideas from humanity. So really, like the androids and the machines were locked in a war that neither of them could win or lose. Talk about like just.
That's why it's been going on for thousands of years.
Talk about an existential crisis.
Yeah.
But any final thoughts on Nier?
I think we covered about everything.
Yeah, I
Great
think
game.
we did a good job. I'm sorry this went on for so long, but there's so much to talk about in this game.
Yeah.
That people are still talking about it.
Yep. I feel like it's one of those games that obviously we don't see on the sales charts or anything, but it's probably still selling well. Like whenever it goes on sale, there's always going to be this group of people like, okay, fine, I'll play this dang game.
Yeah, which you should. I honestly, you don't have to play the original Nier to enjoy this game.
Mm-hmm.
I really like this game, and people should definitely check it out. If you want to see, if you believe that games can truly be like, unique and special, and like their own distinct brand of like art, like I think this is a really good example of that.
Again, like you said, like at the very beginning, not a game you can really judge by its cover.
Yeah.
Because all you see is a scantily clad anime girl, and you're like, oh, okay, it's that kind of game.
Yeah. But if you're listening to this and you've not played Nier Automata, definitely go play that, and hopefully this encourage you to check it out and have some things to kind of chew on while you play through it.
I need to get 2B and Soul Calibur.
Yeah. So have a good one.
Yep.
Glory to mankind.
Glory to mankind. Do we have their this? I can't remember. Yeah.
Something like that.
Peace.
We'll cut there.